Hello, and welcome to a live pop culture on Deprogram with Keri Smith. I'm one of your hosts, Keri, and thanks for being patient. We're running a little late because Mystery Chris is having some connectivity problems, so he's going to be joining us shortly. He's still trying, but we figured let's just get started, and he can join by phone if his computer continues to malfunction. So, we are very blessed. We're very excited tonight to be joined by a guest that I've had on Deprogram before on the regular series in an interview, Dr. Mark Owsley, who I've talked to. I know the doctor, and we've talked about CRT and education and more serious conversation. But I told you we were doing a music show tonight, and you were like, "Doctor of music here, hello."
Yeah, it's the only time. It's the only time I get to put out my academic credentials like they matter. So come on, let
Well,
me
tell
on.
people while we're waiting. Tell people. Oh wait, I think this might be him.
Oh, here he comes.
Hello.
Hello.
Yay! Are you
Yeah,
here?
can
I
you
don't
hear
Here?
us?
Can you?
Oh, it's a mess. I don't know what's happening. I'm scared.
But you can hear us now.
Yes.
Yay!
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
celebrate.
Victory.
Crisis avoided.
Woohoo! So we just started. You didn't miss much, Chris. I was going to ask Mark to tell the audience a little bit about himself, and I was joking with him on his channel before because I can't remember how it came up, but I like that you're humble and you have a sense of humor because I was like, oh, we were a doctor of
Yeah, I'm a
music.
doctor. No, yeah, because that means so much. No, it means that I was a glutton for punishment and wasn't smart enough to do anything else. But no, I do a little podcast that Keri is going to be on soon.
All right.
And it's called Unwokeable Podcast Channel. It's on YouTube, and I got a Twitter account. It's at ACS against CRT. But I basically I'm an advocate for students. With the critical turn and things like that in academia. I'm a music teacher, taught middle and high school, things like that for a while, and went back to get my doctorate. And right in the middle of that came, the big critical turn. And so that's what my channel's about. I do a lot of interviews. I've had James Lindsay, I've had Eric Smith, I'm gonna have Keri on. Just trying to let everybody know what's going on with all of those things, and I'm trying to now shift a little bit more towards how that has affected the arts, specifically like ensemble music. I'm a choir director is my trade. So yeah, that's what I do, and I was really excited to come on this because I don't get to talk about music enough. So thanks for having me.
Um, I'm so excited to have your expertise tonight. So, and I think it's smart that you're moving a little bit because you do so much with woke ideology and how it's infiltrated education.
Mhm.
And there need we need people talking about it in every sphere and to be talking about how it affects music. I think in the arts is I think it's very important. So,
Well, yeah,
um,
thank you.
well, we're gonna have some fun tonight. Mystery Chris, now that you're here, take a deep breath. How would you like to
Uh,
lay it? How would you like to lay out the show?
I wanted to do this show because I've been thinking a lot about modern music and I wanted to do something exploring pop music. Like the title of our show, we were talking about why music sucks. I want to be clear, we're not talking about all music because obviously there's a ton of great new music out there.
Yes.
So what we are talking about specifically is like top 40, most popular, highest sales artists. And I think a lot of people our age, people who are older than college age, tend to think modern music sucks. And so I wanted to kind of
Mhm.
test our bias in a sense to really kind of go through some old music and new music to see if we're looking back at a lot of old music with rose tinted glasses and if new music is as bad as we want to believe. Because I really don't listen to top 40 type music. Like if I'm at the gym, if I'm at the store, I might hear some. If the commercial comes on, I'll hear it there, but I don't actively seek it out. And so I assume that much of the top 40 sucks. And so I wanted to really have excuse to really go through and listen to it. And I thought, Keri, thought you'd be great. And I'm glad Mark's joining us because I really wanted someone who understands music and can provide some details as to why certain songs work and why other ones don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will be clear also because I've already seen some controversy in the chat. In fact, this might be the most controversial show we've ever done. I know a lot of people on Twitter were like, "What are you talking about? There's lots of great new music." Yes, I agree. We're talking about popular music, like what becomes famous and is heard on the airwaves and what the kids are downloading and listening to. And what is currently considered popular music, it's not the good stuff in my opinion. I've there is good music out there. You just have to search for it. I am not a doctor of music, but I will say this. One of my gig jobs requires me to hang out with young people once a week for like all day and often listen to playlists that they have curated. And it's terrible.
I would say that's probably safe, but I would say this too. I would say this. You know, Immanuel Kant. I'm going to drop some knowledge
Okay.
here. Immanuel Kant said there's no disputing taste, except that
Okay.
what I think sucks. So just remember that because, but no, I think I've experienced that too. And I always think to myself, am I just the old curmudgeon? You know, every time I hear a new song, I'm just like, blah, that sucks. You know, but there are reasons. There are
Yeah.
reasons, and I think we'll get into it a little bit. So.
Yeah. So how would you like to do this, Mystery Chris? We do have a list pulled up, you guys. We were going to hit some of the play clips from some of the popular songs from each decade. And I have a song pulled up from the 1890s. We're going to start there. Is that okay, or would you
The
rather get into some
oldies.
articles?
What do you think? I was thinking maybe hitting some of the articles and then go into, the list.
Let's do that. But first, we do have a super chat. Thank you, Mr. Ken Lipson, who himself is an artist. Ken Lipson gives a $5 chat and says, "Establish a baseline, top 3 bands or singers of all time from each panel member." Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Oh,
come
that is
on.
hard. But
Okay.
you
Of
gotta
all
clarify.
time?
Is it like our favorites or what we think is the best? Because there are
Yeah.
certain singers that I think, from a technical point of view, are awesome, but there are other singers that can't really sing that much, but their music means a lot to me, and I enjoy their voice. Like I like the Smashing Pumpkins, but Billy Corgan can't sing, but I love it. So stuff like that. It's like you gotta be a
Yeah,
little
and then
more.
there's sentimental value, just like you were saying. There's all kinds of things there. So but it's a good
Mhm.
idea.
Okay,
You know,
well,
we could,
what would you say, top 3 favorites? And they don't have to be, I mean, I can't even. I'm just gonna throw out 3. Top 3 favorites and top 3 maybe that you think are most important to music history.
y'all got to go first because you're just because you
Okay.
just
I will say, I'll start. I'm gonna draw on the knowledge of my husband here, who's I wish he were on this episode. He is gonna be on an episode with us in the future to talk about music, but this is just coming from lectures I've heard from him. I
okay.
shouldn't say
All right.
lectures, where he's teaching me stuff.
Uh-huh.
So top 3, just based on stuff that he's told me about the history of music and the foundation that created space for other kinds of music. I guess I would say probably Mozart, um, the Beatles, and Elvis.
Okay.
In terms of most important favorites, do I get to pick my favorites? Fleetwood Mac and
Okay.
Fleetwood
All
Mac and
right.
Fleetwood Mac. Okay.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
go, you go, Mystery Crit or Mark, whoever wants to.
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris. I'm just sitting here trying to make a listen and scratching stuff out.
Right.
So
I know it's like as soon as I say something, I'm gonna go, no, that's dumb.
yeah,
No.
that's horrible.
Most important, off the top of my head, and I'd have to really think about this more, but off the top of my head, the Beatles had a huge influence on music. I think Michael Jackson had a huge influence on pop music.
Mhm.
Third, I don't know, R. Kelly. No.
And he touches the third rail. Wait a minute.
Oh man, he is a modern day Shakespeare.
Yeah.
That song called Sex
In the
Planet
closet.
is fantastic.
Right? Was it?
But favorites. Sam Cooke had a beautiful voice. I love Lane Staley from Alice in Chains.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Shoot. Is it weird to say that I love Whitney Houston's voice, even though I don't like her
No,
music?
I
Oh
love Whitney
no,
Houston's
Whitney
voice.
Houston
Her,
is one of the best singers that's ever lived,
Yeah.
I agree. Uh,
technically, like for
even though
sure.
even though I didn't really like too many of her musical arrangements, she had one of the most powerful voices I've ever heard in
Her
music.
con-
And
oh,
did you see the ever see that? I think she was the national anthem she was performing for the Super Bowl. I think in '91. That was
yes,
right around time the first Iraq War occurred. And even though it was playback, it was still one of the probably no, not one of the most beautiful rendition of the national anthem I've ever heard. And like it almost makes me like tear up just how
Yeah.
hmm
powerful that her singing was on that.
well, her control is impeccable. I mean,
Mhm.
when she was in her prime, to the way that she could hold a pitch and control it and move it, it's almost I've seen almost no one else who can do that. I mean,
Yeah.
outside of an opera singer, even like it's crazy. So
Well,
I would agree.
prior to this episode, us recording this episode right now, I listened to some tracks online. There are a lot of videos where you can find just the vocal portions of various songs. And
Mhm.
so I was comparing singers today with like singers, just like the vocal tracks. And I know there's a lot of autotune in modern music and stuff, but there's really no one who comes close to Whitney's voice.
hmm
You know, Adele has a great voice, but it's still not on the level of Whitney.
Whitney.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
I would agree with that.
couple
I
of
could.
a lot of people in the chat are mentioning Robert Johnson. Yes.
hmm
By the way, if you don't know that story about him, I do know this story about him. They said he wasn't that great at blues guitar and that he was sort of average and then he disappeared from the scene for a long time and came
Yeah,
back. You know the story? And
yeah.
he supposedly
Made a deal with the
made
devil.
it he said he'd made a
Yeah,
deal with the devil and it came back and just killed it. Like, sold his soul.
yeah. There's actually a lot of folklore around that. They say Prince did the same thing. There's folklore about Prince doing that. There's folklore about several different people,
Bob
even people that
Dylan,
are alive now. Yeah, just selling themselves, their souls to the devil to get their, whatever. So that's a common
crazy.
trope. Yeah.
Okay, so Mark,
Okay.
what's on your list?
Okay. Well, if I'm gonna go to classical music, there are two that I have to name. That both in their different eras, but there's Bach and there's Beethoven, and the reason why is because both of them were were pivot points in music history. Bach was a perfecter of the old style, so to speak. He Nobody does music now without Bach's influence at all, and that's including Beethoven. But Beethoven changed music. He created the first, programmatic symphony and the first choral symphony. So, and basically changed the whole game. Everything leads up to Beethoven and then spreads out after him, and music was never the same after him.
Mm.
Um, but if I'm going into pop music, it's really hard for me to ignore Queen. It,
No.
and Freddie Mercury, who was an opera singer, but their combination of drama and consistency up to the point that Freddie Mercury died is it's really hard for me to ignore them. And when I want to go back and find something consistently good, that's where I go, when especially rock music. I the Beatles are a huge influence, but I don't think they perform well, especially live. I love their songs. So,
Mhm.
but John Lennon and Paul McCartney are great. I just want to point that out. I'm not gonna burn down any houses here, but they are great. But they are not the best performers, so to speak, not the
Mhm.
best voices. And then Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is another like Queen. If you're talking pop music, which is where I'm going, you can't beat him. I mean, and one of my favorite videos from him, if you go back and look, you ever heard All I'm Gonna Say Is That They Don't Really Care About Us, that song by him.
No.
If you listen to that, the background track of the drum track is his voice. It's not a drum track. If you go and listen to Michael Jackson beatbox, and he sounds exactly like an electronic drum machine. It's insane. And so when you mix that
Wow.
with his performance ability and all of that, you just can't beat him. You can't beat him.
Wow.
And he scored some music for, I believe, Sonic 3, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. He's either 2 or 3, and he's uncredited. But one of the producers who are, making the game revealed that they asked him to come in. He made some music for it, and I knew exactly like what music specifically he made in that game because it sounds like.
Well, and I have to drop this on you, and I won't talk the whole time, I promise.
Mhm.
But Michael Jackson actually stole the Beatles catalog from Paul McCartney. Did
Oh,
you know
that's
that?
right. I did know
Yeah,
that.
and it was such a dirty deal.
He
It was
bought
such.
it.
Now Paul McCartney was like, "Hey, you should invest in this because all this old music isn't owned and it's coming up." And then a little while later, he goes to Michael Jackson and says, "Hey, I'm trying to buy back my catalog," and Michael Jackson's like, "Nah," and then goes and buys it. So he bought until Michael Jackson died. He owed the Beatle catalog and did Paul McCartney dirty. So
Wow. Wow. I will you mentioned Bach, and I left him off my list, and I was remiss in doing that because I wonder what you think about this. One of the things my husband's always trying to teach me about, because he was oh, we lost Chris.
oh no,
I assume he'll be back. He was trying to teach me about how Bach was, in his opinion, sort of laid the groundwork for metal, like the most metal of all the composers.
uh,
And
yeah,
have you ever heard that before?
Well, I think what he's probably getting at is Baroque music in general is very what they call melismatic. So there's a lot of notes and in a short period of time. So when you're
Mm,
thinking about fugues, da 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 da,
mhm.
that was all Baroque music, and they called it the flawed pearl, like that. So, and they teach you in music doctor school to go to equate everything to the time period, and Baroque music is very equated to Baroque architecture. And if you've ever seen a metal music video, like one of the dark ones, it's all Baroque, gargoyles and stuff like that. Well,
Mhm.
that all came from the Baroque sound. So I could see that, and just the very fast riffs, very much so, and the organ.
The organ. He talks about the
Mhm,
organ, yeah.
mhm. Yeah, so
And
the organ's super metal. I mean, it's the super instrument. It was the wall of sound before there was a wall of sound, you know.
yeah.
So absolutely, I would agree with that.
He's also he's gonna laugh at me for talking so much about things he said. He should have just been on this episode.
Yeah, come on.
One of the things he said is he was telling me how, because the Beatles are one of his favorite bands of all time, and now he's getting into, not that he didn't like the Rolling Stones, but he's going through a phase of really reappreciating the Stones, and he was sort of saying the Beatles make him think of Beethoven, where everything's pat and perfect, early Beatles, right?
Mhm,
And he said the Stones are more like Mozart, where it's like everything, they don't care if they just break the rules, and it's real sloppy, and but it's great, it's inspired, but
mhm.
it's not like that. The early Beatles was very pat and like boy band kind of
Yeah,
perfect,
I
you
would
know?
flip that. I would flip
Would
that
you?
because yeah, I would because Beethoven was way more off the rails. Mozart was within the class. He's earlier, right? So he's
Mhm,
he's going it way more with the rules, not, but he was the best at it. He was
mhm,
kind of the Bach of the classical era. And Beethoven is the one who kind of took it off the rails. He was the one that expanded everything and then just made, everything longer and bigger. But I see where he's going with it. I,
mhm.
I, I could see why that would be his opinion because,
Oh, he agrees with you. I'm wrong. I can't believe he's in the chat. He says,
oh,
"No,
hey,
no." He says
oh yeah, see,
Mozart.
okay, see, I earned my doctorate. Thank you, Anthony. Thank
He
you.
says, "No,
Yes.
Keri, Mozart were the Beatles.
Yeah.
Beethoven are the Stones. Is the
Okay.
Stones."
Yes. Okay. So that makes more sense to me. Yes. And then Anthony, yes, I would agree with that 100%. And Beethoven is the Stones. Beethoven was the guy who, first of all, he was very, very malcontent. He's a very, and Mozart was, kind of the foppish, and I'm literally
Yeah.
using Carrie's words, but from
Hawkish.
the other day, but foppish and fun and jokey. Beethoven was very serious, and I'm gonna have an ulcer kind of musician, and you definitely can hear that if you make the equation to the Stones and the Beatles. I would agree with
Oh, okay. Okay.
that.
I'm glad you showed up, Anthony. I would have butchered that forever.
Yeah.
Correction from my husband, guys. Okay.
What about Beethoven the dog? Where would you say he ranks amongst movie dogs?
Amongst movie dogs?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd say
You
he's
got
the
Air
best one.
Bud and Milo or Otis, whichever one was the dog.
I am partial to Beethoven the dog. I mean, that was right in the center of my like world, you know. So it's got Milo and Otis always annoyed me because I don't like smaller dogs, and Air Bud was past my time, so it's automatically worse than what was in my time. That makes sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's good.
One final comment, Mark, from Anthony, which you may or may
Okay.
not agree with. He says, and Bach harmonically resembled metal, but Beethoven executed the spirit of metal.
I would agree with that. Yes, Bach again, Baroque music was less structured than classical music, and Beethoven was kind of working out of classical music, so he was still very much within the 4-bar phrase, 1-4-5-1 kind of structure. And Baroque music, which came before that, was like I said, it's the flawed pearl. It's Baroque architecture. It's more wild. There's more notes per square minute. And so, yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that.
Cool. There are people weighing in now with their favorite dogs. See what you started, Mr. Chris?
Yes.
Turner and
Yes.
Yeah. Pardon.
Can we add Clifford now, even though it's like a CGI dog?
Well,
Like,
we forgot Lassie.
Lassie, yeah.
Lassie.
Cujo.
Okay,
gosh.
Cujo. Oh,
Yeah.
Cujo. Cujo was Beethoven, but on drugs.
That's true. Minus the rabies. So.
We do have a music snob in the chat, self-declared music snob. They're
Oh,
really
here we
not
go.
going to like the dog comparisons.
Well, Toto?
Yeah.
Now, are we talking the band or the dog?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
that's a unified. That's a unified. And I will say this: Toto was a band of music doctors.
Mm.
They had
Oh, really?
PhDs. Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
yeah. So just
Um,
pointing that out.
I can dig some Toto. Okay.
Yeah.
What would you like to start with, Chris? You tell me what to pull up.
I emailed you. Sorry, I meant to get stuff
Oh,
out to you earlier, but we're
okay.
having technical difficulties.
That's okay.
But I emailed you some links, and there's
Okay.
one link I wanted to bring up, and if you want, you can read a little bit. It's from, let's see,
Which
this
one?
is.
Oh, sorry. I gave you a preview of what we're doing.
Oh,
Sorry.
no.
So this one is the offtheleash.net link.
Okay.
And this one talks about Clear Channel. So there's a lot of theories as to why pop music is in the state that it's in. And a lot of people believe it began with the Telecommunications Act of 1996. And this has a little brief synopsis of that. So if you want to read that, you can, Keri.
Sure, I'll read some of it. The future of radio. Oh, we were going to call this episode "Radio Killed the Radio Star."
Ah.
Is that because of this piece? Maybe
In part.
in part. Okay, this is called. It's from offtheleash.net, and the article is called "The Future of Radio Is at the End for Big Corporate Radio." In the 1990s, the FCC relaxed its restrictions of radio station ownership and set the stage for large corporate consolidation of radio stations. Before long, 2 or 3 giant operators gobbled up a majority of the nation's radio stations in most of the major markets. Chief among those consolidators was Clear Channel, which we've all heard of, which was later sold in a private equity transaction to Bain Capital and Thomas Lee Partners. Bain Capital sounds like something from Batman.
No, that's Mitt Romney's
well,
company.
Mitt Romney, yeah.
That's why we lost music. Was Mitt Romney? That
Mitt
makes perfect
Romney,
sense.
Mittens Romney. Damn
Yeah,
you.
no, that guy is the most bland person. So
Mitt Romney, who let the dogs out.
Yeah.
It was renamed iHeartMedia. Oh, I know iHeart.
Uh-huh.
iHeartMedia owns 858 radio stations in more than 150 markets. The Clear Channel iHeart stations are the epitome of big corporate radio. They are divided into narrowly defined formats. Their playlists are computer generated based on ratings. They are intentionally and unashamedly predictable and repetitive. I don't think that puts them in a very competitive position. If that's what you want to hear, there are plenty of places to find it without having to listen to all the ads on commercial radio. So how is it working out for them? Well, according to a financial statement by iHeart earlier this year, quote, we incurred net losses and had negative cash flows from operations for the years ended 2016 and 2015, as well as for the quarter ended March 31st, 2017. The leveraged buyout of Clear Channel in 2008 saddled the new entity with $20 billion in debt, and they can't pay it off. In a recent SEC filing, iHeart acknowledged that they might not, in fact, make it through the year. Then there's the number two player, Cumulus Media. They own 454 stations in 90 markets. Seems as though they aren't doing much better. Goes on about how they've lost a lot of money too.
And yeah, that's
Yeah. Is that it?
basically it. But this was in 2017, and Clear Channel ended up filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2018. Now they're out of bankruptcy now, but they had to sell off portions of the business. They had to divest themselves of their TV stations. They had to sell a number of their radio stations. Like at their peak, they owned over 1,200, and now it's around 800 or something. And they had to, I believe, sell off the organization that organized live events. And so a lot of people were seeing, conflict of interest here. I mean, you're kind of, promoting certain artists that you want to promote that you're also playing, and it's just obviously some dirty deals going on behind the scenes, things like that. So I think there's a lot of truth in the Telecommunications Act of 1996. I need to read it. Me, I tend to look at these things and think that, quote unquote, deregulation oftentimes isn't what it seems, and that there are other factors. And so I'm curious to research that and find out if there are other things that help give them an advantage and that made it harder for competitors to enter the market, because typically that's the way these big corporations operate, by creating these, barriers to entry. And I imagine there would be some with that. So like I said, they're still the largest owner of terrestrial radio, but they're seeing a lot of competition with online music now.
Yeah, Spotify, everyone's listening to the
Sirius,
online
XM,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. But if you think about it, what you're saying about radio is, yeah, once you switch to an algorithm that's determining what you're playing, you leave out human creativity and ingenuity, and you leave out those weird like college radio station DJs who are putting on something different that breaks the rules that the algorithm would never have selected, that then finds an audience because they're playing it and they're showing it to people. It almost, if you have algorithm determining what's played, it's necessarily means you're never going to have anything new break out.
Yeah, and you're going to hack the mind. Yeah, I mean that's literally what's going to happen, or what has happened in large cases, is that when you, just like you said, when you remove the human factor, right? That, because that's what conductors do now, right? When you're, or have always done, is they pick the rep. Well, when you have the rep assigned to you, it's all going to be very cookie cutter. I was going to ask you, Chris, do you know that if this was the same act that made it to where all music that was produced for the radio had to be set at the same decibel level?
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't read about that when I was doing some research.
Okay. Well, there was an act, and I thought it was 96, and it may have been a little bit later, but Congress passed an act that basically said that because they were afraid that people were going to be reaching for the radio to turn it up or down, that everything had to be set at the same decibel level. So that's why your music that comes out over the radio won't be, one song will be louder than the other. It's all kind of at the same level. So, which is another kind of oral trick where everything is just at the same bland texture, right?
Yeah.
It's for safety, but you have no variety. You have no loud and soft. You have no kind of intensity in the stuff you listen to, especially in the car. So.
Yeah. Just a couple of comments before we move on. First of all, super chat. Thank you, GJJ, who gives $20. The Beatles were hard men too. The Rolling Stones were the Mummy's boys. Lemmy.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I should say, just so you guys know, I forgot to mention at the top of the show, we do have, if you want to support the show financially, we have a Subscribe Star, a Patreon, and a Locals. The pop culture episodes in particular, we never get monetized with ads because we play too many clips, but that's okay because that's what we do during the show. And I already know tonight, like, we're going to be playing music, so it's no way it's going to last. This is not a super chat, but I just wanted to read it because it makes me happy. Just call me angel of the morning, angel. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Okay.
Beautiful. That's beautiful, Keri.
I can't sing. I wish
You
I could.
can sing. What are you talking about?
Well, I like singing, even though I'm not great at it. But my husband's the singer. So, okay. So what now, Chris? Are we going to read something else, or can we play a clip?
Your choice. What do you want to do?
Let's play one clip, and then we can go back to an article if you want.
All right.
This will be fun. So, we pulled up a list of the top 10 most popular songs of each decade starting in 1890. And there's no way we'll make it through all of these. So we're going to kind of skip around. Somebody in the chat said they started listening to the number one most popular song starting with the 1940s, and it took them months to like really thoroughly listen. So we don't have months tonight.
Well, this one's a banger. This first one's a banger.
This first one's a banger. Everybody should know this song. Here we go. This is Hello, My Baby by Arthur Collins, 1899.
Hello, people, hello. Please don't put me off that way. Hello, what the hello? I've got a little baby, but she's out of sight. I talked to her across the telephone. I've never seen money, but she's mine, all right. So take my kiss and leave the cat alone. Every single morning you'll hear me yell, hello, baby, telephone, and tell me I belong. Hello, baby, hello. I guess you don't hear me, the one goes right.
Wait a minute. Is this not Hello, My Baby? Hello, my
I don't
darling?
think it is.
Oh.
No. I don't think it is.
I'm not sure.
Did you not listen to it first?
No, I just assumed it was Hello, My Baby. That's what it's called.
Well,
Hello,
I
my
thought I
baby.
might have
Hello,
heard
my
it there.
darling. Yeah.
Go back like I don't know, to the right over
Right there?
by the white. Yeah.
If you refuse me,
There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah, you gotta find the hook. You gotta find the hook.
Hello, baby.
No.
Hello. I guess you don't hear me. The wires must be fine. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey.
No, it's not the right
Yes,
song.
Yes, it is.
Is it?
Yes, it was
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
it right there. Hello,
Right there.
my baby. He's just not singing it. It's like it's the original, you know.
Hello,
So
my ragtime girl.
Oh, you're right.
Send me
Okay.
my ragtime girl. Send me a kiss, my wire. You hear me, baby? My heart on fire.
Yeah.
If you refuse me, honey, you lose me, then you'll have hello, baby, telephone, and tell me I belong. Hello, baby, hello.
That it is the right song.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to hear those old recordings because they were laid down in wax. And when he's recording this, he's literally screaming into a cone and having the piano kind of play behind him. So that's why you can hear his voice so much better than you can hear the piano in the back. So it's kind of hard to get the tonality, but
Somebody asked
interesting.
recorded on wax cylinder. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And then Kevin Anderson says we're all just used to the Michigan J Frog version. Yeah.
Yeah. He perfected it.
The frog with the hat. That's what we joke, my husband and I, whenever my dog, he knows several tricks, but he won't wait anymore for you to tell him which trick to do. He just does all of them. Like he's like, hello, my baby. Hello, he'll do all of them. Like, give me the treat.
I always think of the end of Spaceballs where they're at the diner. They see the alien pop out of his stomach, and everyone's horrified. But then he puts on a hat. He starts singing, "Hello, baby, hello, man." They're like, "Check, please."
Spaceballs.
Truly the WAP of its
Yeah.
time.
That's credit.
Okay.
Oh, hey. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, no, I was going to say, tell me why a song like this survives, though. I mean, I know we all know it because of the frog, but why? Everybody knows this song. My husband still plays this song on the piano. He does this song, especially at when he plays retirement homes or nursing homes. Like, they love it, and we know this song. It's survived.
I think we know because of cartoons.
Yeah.
That's how I know so many of these songs. Because as I was going through this list, a lot of these songs, like the old ones prior to like 1940, were ones I've heard in various cartoons, and particularly a lot of the older cartoons, ones that were made in like the 40s, 50s, 60s. And I don't know if they really play those anymore. So I'm not sure if kids would recognize it like we recognize these songs.
Commercials.
Mhm.
Commercials. I mean, that's a large part of it too, because you'll hear them. I mean, this is ragtime, so Scott Joplin and all of that. But like those, if you want something to give you nostalgia, you will see that often in commercials because that helps you sell things. And so that's where I've heard a lot of this song several times just in a commercial. And so that's a large part of it.
Yeah.
But in terms of just how it sticks with you, it makes you feel good, and
Yeah.
and I mean, you can never discount that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna pull up another one. Unless you wanna, do you wanna read something in between, Chris?
No, keep going.
Okay. So this next one is another one that I think we'll all recognize. Hold on, let me get this pulled up.
Oh, we should do like a competition and like a blindfold. Name that song.
Okay. Can you see that?
Not yet.
No.
Let's see.
No, we don't.
Oh.
No.
There we go.
Casey was baseball mad, had the fever and had it bad. Just to root for the hometown through every school, Casey Blue. On a Saturday, her young beau called to see if she'd like to go to see a show, but Miss King said no. I tell you what you can do. Take me out to the ball game.
We all know this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let's root for our own team. If
Love
they
it.
don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
As
We
I was
know that.
listening to these old songs, I kept expecting them to drop N bombs. I never had. Like it's coming any moment now.
Just get just to keep it moving,
Yeah, because
Yeah.
when I was looking up clips of 1950s, I was trying to find reactions of what people had to rock and roll, and I sent you one of those. We can play that, but one of them was a long clip. I would have sent it to you, but there's like 3 N bombs in it.
Oh no.
Like this N-word music. It's got to stop.
Is it people fainting and stuff?
Damn.
That's harsh.
We have a divided chat, guys. There are some people who say like, Nick, I would rather listen to this than anything on the radio today. I probably would too. A lot of this old stuff. I mean, we'll get to our favorite decades later, but I stay in the 1950s a lot. I mean, I put on Spotify and just there's a ton of 50s playlists, but I like the 20s too. This was 1908. But then we have people in the chat who don't like it. Ken Lipson, not going to read that comment, but
it goes well with this picture there.
Not a fan, Ken.
Come on, wow, that was rough.
So, what do you have anything smart and doctor to say about these songs?
Well, that was based on a Haydn quartet. See, that's the thing that we don't realize too, is that just like Shakespeare, all of the tropes that we see in movies, all the stuff we see in television shows, they're all cribbing Shakespeare tropes, right? Much of the music you hear now, especially when you're talking about the chord progressions of things, are just cribbing old um, classical music. And that was Take Me Off the Ball Game is based off of a Haydn quartet, and he wrote, I don't know, 170 of those. So, and within each of those is a melody, and I mean, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, that's Mozart. Right? All of these things come from classical tropes. It's almost like at a certain point, people stopped wanting to create things, or they just thought they could monetize it. But here's the other thing about that: all of the classical musicians stole from each other, and it was expected that it was done so.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's my little smart nugget.
That's cool. I'm so glad we have you here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna play one more, and then we can switch back to reading some stuff if you want, Chris, before we move into the later 1900s. So this is from the following decade. This is 1917.
Okay.
And I am picking some of the ones that I think people will know.
Yeah. Well, it's pop music. I mean,
yeah. So these are songs that survived. Hold That Tiger, yes. So I know that song, The Tiger Rag, because I grew up in South Carolina. My dad would take us he went to Clemson, pretty much our whole family.
Mm-hmm.
We would go to the games, and that's the Hold That Tiger song. That's how I knew it. But do you guys know that song?
No, I don't.
No, I honestly don't. I know a lot of things that sound like it, but that's all the whole 10 Pin Alley Jazz, although there was some cultural appropriation happening there, because they were all white boys. But that's also where you hear a lot of your marching band music coming out of, your early marching band music. That's when that started. So that makes sense that it would be attached to the Clemson Tigers, right? Because they probably played it since the beginning of the college.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody in the chat knows it from that. They're like, "Hold that tiger," because we had words that went with it, Cool. Okay. What would you like us to hit next, Chris?
Maybe we keep going. I had an article about TikTok, but maybe we can save that for a little bit later. When we get a little closer to modern times.
TikTok is evil.
Okay, so this next one, now we're gonna get into some really good stuff.
Okay.
I'm
like excited to see what you're gonna play. This is fun.
I went through a phase of listening to this next singer like all the time.
Al Jolson.
And who?
Bass. Al Jolson.
Who's that?
It's not Al Jolson.
He's a famous minstrel performer.
Oh,
Bessie Smith.
Oh my gosh.
Here we go.
She's the Queen of Blues, the original Queen of Blues.
So St. Louis Blues was one of the top 10 most popular songs in the 20s. This is from 1929.
My man's got a heart like a rocket in the sea. My man's got a heart like a rocket sea. My man's got a heart like a rocket in the sea. My man's got a heart like a rocket in the sea.
Oh.
I love her.
She's the original. She's the OG.
Yeah.
How about before like some rapper samples her song and like Cardi B comes starts rapping like right?
Well, she did some very dirty WAP like kind of music.
No, yeah, I found some. Maybe we can play some dirty 1930s.
But I will say, there's Ken Lipson. He was here that said that Etta James was the queen. There would be no Etta James. There would be no Aretha Franklin without Bessie Smith.
Without Bessie Smith. Also, can we just say, look at this great music video.
I know.
1929, and they've got like set design. She's standing at the bar with a beer. Like, this is a music video.
Yeah,
Guns and
ahead of her
shots.
time. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I'll say this: part of the reason that because there was a backlash to blues music, because it was, the black church and the spiritual was such a backbone of the African American community at that time. But you can hear the spiritual in this. The African American is spiritual in it, and that's one of my favorite choral genres is African American spiritual. And she was the genesis of that in blues.
Yeah.
You can feel her music. You can feel it.
I was curious to find out how popular this was at the time, because the list that you and I were using, Keri, had this number one, and the list was compiled through record sales, through any kind of information they had. Obviously, this was before Billboard really started the music chart, and so this person compiling the list just found different sources and made a list of what he believed were the most popular songs, and this was number one for the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So I was curious just how popular it was, because just like you're saying, Mark, obviously a lot of pushback and but jazz, blues and stuff like that.
There was pushback, but just from the religious community in general. But nobody could deny that it was popular, because even this is when you first started seeing the real evidence of the melting pot, so to speak, was through the arts and through music. Is because then all of a sudden, people who had never been a part of African American culture in the South were going and grabbing these records, right, and playing them at home and going. That's why Elvis became Elvis. That's what people don't understand too, is that he was listening to Bessie Smith. He was listening to Bessie Smith.
He needs to be canceled. Cultural appropriating. Surprised they haven't come for Elvis yet.
Well, they've tried to a lot. They always say he appropriated and he stole all this music from black artists. But Cameron Pasha, who I have on the show quite often, on Mondays, he had a great take on this. He was telling me about the new Elvis movie, which I haven't seen yet. I really want to see, but he was saying, look, without Elvis kind of, he did so much to move culture along in terms of reaching, like helping our society to move past racism, to dispel a lot of racism, because he brought all this black music to popular culture, and he had a great reverence for it and a great love for it. And he also, a lot of the singers, the black singers and songwriters that he worked with became famous because of his support, because of him bringing them into the mainstream culture. I thought that was an interesting take. That's why I listed him as one of the most important in my list.
Well, I would agree with that, but I will say this: first of all, music doesn't have a color, and I'll use this I'll use this as an example. I think it has more of a class. Like, and I was talking to Wilford Riley about this just recently, that Elvis was a poor Mississippi boy. And the reason why he became so well acquainted with that music is because most of the people around him were black. I mean, and that's what he was hearing in the churches. That's the kind of churches he would go to. So he would get country music, which is, kind of Hank Williams, blah, blah, blah. And then you get the African American spiritual and the blues that they would play on the front porches all the time. And it became a part of his milieu. It became a part of his experience. And to appropriate your own experience is impossible, right? That's the part that people don't understand, is that he wasn't stealing anything from anybody. It was a part of his experience.
It was his experience. You're right.
Yeah.
When you first started talking about him, are you familiar with the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin? I thought you were about to say Elvis was born a poor black child.
Yeah. but kind of. Not the difference being is that he obviously didn't face the overt that he wasn't okay. We're not going to let you in here because of the color of our skin. Bessie Smith died because she was in a car wreck and they wouldn't allow her into a white hospital.
A white hospital, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so he didn't experience that. But as a poor black boy, he was, just in the eyes of the white aristocracy, if you want to talk about it, or he was just a tad bit above that. And so it's always been more of a class thing. And music has bridged the class. And Bessie Smith started that process. She was the first major recording artist, and the blues
changed everything.
Yeah, it changed everything. And I hope you get into. Well, I'm not gonna.
So this comedian I used to work with, who's very woke now. I mean, he was woke when we worked together, and I was woke, but now, when everyone started these cultural inflection points, people either woke up or they went further in. He went further in, and I started waking up. His name's W. Kamau Bell. I still think he's got a show. It's a super woke show on CNN. I still think, though, that some of his stand-up is very funny. There's this one joke he used to do where he would write on a whiteboard. He would say, all popular music, all of it, created by Black people, all of it. And you would hear some people in the audience like, he's like, name a genre that's not. And he would wait until somebody said country music, and he'd be like, nope, country music, Black people. He's like, here, I can prove it mathematically. And his joke was, country music equals the blues minus slavery. And I was like, that's funny. Come on.
It is funny. Yeah, no, that is funny. It's not entirely correct, but it is funny.
But it's funny.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is that there were Black people playing country music, and it was not. When you got into the hill countries and you got into the poorer areas, it was not as segregated as people think it was. I mean, if you go back and actually read the history, I used to teach a class called The History of Jazz, Pop, and Rock, and the blues was the apex, and it was a mixture of country and gospel music. That's what it became, and that's what became rock and roll. So yeah.
Mr. Chris, are you still here?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Oh, so I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
Oh, no, you're not.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure you weren't having tech problems. That's all.
Yeah, it comes and goes, but
okay. Should I play another one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's keep this party going.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the 1930s, and I'm picking what was listed as number 1 from that decade.
Yeah.
Good choice, right?
The most recorded song in history.
Way over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true.
Wow, we have some haters in the chat tonight. Look at Kevin Anderson. Meh. What?
Their blackface video. That's
She has a blackface video?
yeah. There was some movie she was in.
What? No.
Oh gosh! Don't cancel Judy Garland. Come on. There's only so much we can take as a culture, guys.
Well,
Okay.
I can't tell if it's her or Justin Trudeau. I'm looking at a picture right now.
It's probably Justin. Justin Castro. Guys,
It's a time
Justin
traveler.
Castro. What I want to say about Somewhere Over the Rainbow. First of all, it is the most recorded song in all of history. It's the most covered song in all of history.
Wow.
So the more people have covered that than anything else. The other is that it exposes something you don't see in music anymore, which is text painting. Right? When you talk about she's lifting an octave somewhere over the rainbow. She's literally the notes are painting what it is she's singing, because when you talk about a rainbow, it's like this. And that's something you would see a lot in classical music, is text painting. You don't see or hear text painting in today's popular music, where the music is illustrating orally what the words are saying. And that's something that you will see it sometimes in Bob Dylan. You'll see it sometimes in a lot of the Motown music where it'll come out, but you don't see it like that anymore, where it's just so obvious that it's illustrating for you orally what you're singing with your text.
Wow. I had never even heard of that phrase before.
Text painting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's the best.
Yeah.
I've earned my keep tonight.
Let me ask you, this isn't from that decade, but when you're talking about like, we were talking about Whitney Houston before being one of the best singers of all time, best voices, and Judy Garland hitting that high note. What do you think of Minnie Riperton?
Minnie Riperton, I honestly don't know.
I'm
I've just failed.
That's okay.
Is there a song I would know that maybe I just don't know the name?
Loving You, because she hits that really high note.
Oh yes, okay, yes.
From the 70s.
Yeah, she was okay. I know you're talking about now. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, she was Mariah Carey before Mariah Carey. I mean, that kind of control you don't see in many people, and the fact that she could go into that stratosphere is not something. It's whistle tones, though. It's an actual vocal technique that you will see. It's a kind of akin to yodeling, right, where you kind of manipulate the chords. Your vocal cords are basically like lips, and they vibrate, right? And a soprano most of the time, or sometimes some contraltos can do this, but they can manipulate the top of the chords so that their vocal cords will literally whistle, and you'll get an overtone of what you hear from her. So yeah, anybody who can do that is pretty spectacular.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm learning tonight. Thank you. There's other people in the chat are saying the same thing. Whistle notes, whistle tone. Yeah. That's cool.
It's hard to do. It's hard to learn.
Okay. Should we move on to the 1940s? We got to get up to the 2020s.
Yeah. Got a lot to say.
Okay. Here we go.
Of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow.
Okay, this is 1942, White Christmas, Bing Crosby. This was, according to our list, the #1 most popular song in the 1940s. I love this song. This is my favorite kind of Christmas music.
Exactly. I have a Christmas CD or playlist, and I listen to it every Christmas, and it's all basically songs from the 1940s and 50s, and there's some from the 70s, some soul stuff, but most of it's from the 1940s era. And I hate it when modern artists like take old songs, because so many artists do this where they want to create a Christmas album, but instead of coming up with new Christmas songs, they just do covers of old ones, and none of it has the same, for lack of a better word, magic that a lot of these older songs do. There's just something about that's so, I don't know if quaint's the right word, but it's very, it just makes you feel at home.
You know what's interesting is I don't know if you noticed this, Chris, but on the list of the most popular songs from the 1940s, the top 10 from the whole decade, there were like 4 Christmas songs.
Right. Yeah. I think number 3 was what was it? Gene Autry, Rudolph
Rudolph.
Reindeer. Yep.
Yeah, Nat King Cole was on there. The Christmas song "Chestnuts Roasting Over an Open Fire."
I'll be home for
Yeah.
Christmas. You know why? The reason why, because that song was out in 1942, was because of World War II, and
Oh.
there was a concerted effort on the behalf on by entertainment to make the boys feel at home. So they would be out in, whether it's in Europe or and this is actually part of what I'm writing my own dissertation on, or what my dissertation is on music from the World War II era. But there was a concerted effort by the people there to say, hey, we have to do something to make our boys feel at home. And so when you talk about like that song, and even Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or I'll Be Home for Christmas, or Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire, all of these things were designed to, I'll be home for Christmas, right? It was designed to say, hey, we still love you. Think of what you would see at home. And they were text painting, in many cases, what it was that the boys would see at home. So it was very
Wow.
connected to the time, as to where now, or even later on, some of the music is more just to have fun. Think of the Paul McCartney song that just, I hate the Christmas song.
What is it?
Oh gosh, it's not going to come to mind. Somebody will say it in the chat.
Somebody say the awful Paul McCartney Christmas song. What is it?
Yeah, what is the time is right, the moon is full. I hate it. I can't stand it.
Greg the baritone says, I have to, please tell me you're not going to play All I Want for Christmas Is You.
A wonderful Christmas time.
No,
That's it.
I hate that song. I
Me
hate All I
too.
Want for Christmas Is You.
Girls love that song though.
No, I
Yeah.
do not love that song. I have a Christmas playlist on Spotify that's like, I think it's like 200 Christmas songs long, and that song is not on it.
But yeah, no, none of that is connected to the time. And all of it was illustrative, because they wanted the boys to be able to be in a trench somewhere, in a foxhole somewhere, and if they heard it over the API radio, for them to be able to think of home.
Wow.
And so that's why you have all the descriptions, so
It's set in a
that's
time.
why that is Americana, because I that's the only kind of Christmas music I like too. So
Okay. Moving on to my favorite decade,
ooh,
the 1950s. This was the number one most popular song, according to our list, from the whole decade. This is 1955's Rock Around the Clock. Oh, no.
5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. But you're glad to ride song. Join me how we'll have some fun when the clock strikes 1. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around
The clock tonight.
When the clock strikes 2, 3, and 4, if the band slows down, we'll yell for more. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight.
They're dancing on the tables.
of course they are.
They're on the couches. It's getting crazy in here.
It's the devil. The devil made them do it.
Okay, I have to stop because I could listen to the whole song.
Yeah.
I just want to sit in the 50s for a while. Okay.
The 50s is crazy because there's such a monumental shift in music styles that took place. Because, as we're going through the list, there's like, it started off with kind of ragtime, and then it, slowly kind of became more a big band. And then in the 1950s, you have this huge shift with rock and roll, rockabilly. Started to have the, not quite Motown, that was the 60s, but you had kind of the black quartets, that do their, type singing, and it's such a huge shift. It's just amazing. Just all of a sudden, there's a new genre of music, and from there you see more and more subgenres, as the electric guitar and eventually synthesizer would come into play.
That's absolutely right. Well, and 1954 was the year. That was Elvis. And I just forgot his name, but the original, my dad actually played with him, and I cannot
Buddy
think of
Holly?
his name. No, he's an African American. He's a black guy. He's and I failed my test, but
Charlie Parker?
no, he's a guitar player. He did
Not Chuck Berry. Huh?
Chuck Berry. There it is. That's the one. Yeah, my
That's
dad was a drummer and I actually played with him, but as a sub drummer in the '60s. But they made kids move, and it was all about because before this is the big band era. This is Sinatra. This is all the big bands, and so it was very expensive to do. And so when they talk about garage band, that's literally what the Beatles were. They just got together. Oh, I have a guitar, and I've got a drum set, and I've got this, and we can make music. And somebody figured out, hey, I can record this very cheaply, and people will buy it, as opposed to buying an entire orchestra, which is what music was before that. So it was as much economical as it was kind of a change in sound. So there's always money involved. Even going back to Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart, it's always money involved. It's interesting.
And Keri, I have I sent you a couple of videos in that email.
Okay.
One of a preacher reacting to rock and roll.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
I love those videos.
That will pair well with this in the chat. Max, hello, Max. Max says, just popping in, have you addressed the fact that most of the hits of their era were seen as trashy by their elders?
Yeah.
Including Beethoven.
Yeah. I have another 50s related chat from earlier in the stream. Inframagine, thank you, says, seriously, if you like 50s style country and rockabilly, try the Cactus Blossoms. If you haven't, all new music, no covers, no wokeness, no auto-tune, just pure talent. I have not heard of them, so thank you for the suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's one of the great things about like modern music, even though the most popular stuff kind of sucks. But for a lot of more indie or smaller artists, you have a whole generation that's been raised, with the internet. And so you've had a lot of artists who've been able to discover like the most obscure subgenres of music that existed. So a lot of artists and bands are making music in the style of these subgenres that weren't very popular or well known at the time they originated. But there's also bands that are combining the sounds and making kind of a new sound by combining different types. Like one of the bands I love right now is called Drab Majesty, and they combine like 80s goth, 80s synth pop, and dream pop, like the Cocktail Twins, and it's just a beautiful, awesome sound. And I love, and I always, when I have discussions about modern music, I'm always trying to point people to a lot of these bands that are making really, really good music. They're just not at the top of the Spotify playlist.
What's their name again? What's the name of the band?
Majesty.
I'm writing down.
Yeah, we're going to get some good suggestions out of the show. I know it already on Twitter. Somebody was giving me a ton of things. It's like, thank you.
I would hand out CDs I make and like, just listen to this.
I do have a super chat here to read. Thank you very much for the super chat. Heath's Business for Creatives gives $5 and says, great topic. Many might think that my taste in music is terrible, but my thinking on music is the same as on wine. Listen to and drink what you love. I agree.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I've got this. Is this the preacher is this the preacher from Footloose?
John, what's his name? Oh, I can think of, I'm bad with names.
New York, from Florida, to find out my reasons on rock and roll music and why I preach against it, and I believe with all of my heart that it is a contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today. I 100% believe it. Why I believe that is because I know how it feels when you sing it. I know what it does to you. And I know the evil feeling that you feel when you sing it. I know the lost position that you get into in the beat. Well, if you talk to the average teenager of today and you ask them what it is about rock and roll music that they like,
please tell me that someone has taken this and made a song from it.
The beat. Oh, that would be great. If they haven't, they need to right now.
Right.
See,
and the first thing they'll say is the beat.
I will say this about what he didn't know is that all the hymns that he many of the hymns that he was doing in church that were listed up on the thing were all bar tunes at one point.
Wow.
Almost all of the tunes for hymns were taken from bars.
Dr. Mark Owsley dropping the mic.
Well, that's the truth. The national anthem was a bar tune. Like the tune for the national anthem, it's a bar tune. It's from a tavern.
Well,
so boo on you, guy, and your beats.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up. Here we go. Now this is okay. We're moving on to the 1960s, and I've got the list of the top 10 songs from that decade pulled up, but it's wrong because this song should have been on there. So this is from 1962. I'm sorry. I'll just play just a little bit and then we'll play a real one from there. But
okay. Oh, I'm scared. What are you gonna do here?
Oh, I'm a responsible meat man.
No, I don't want to hear your ad.
Shut up, guy.
Shut up.
They
Sorry,
should
guys.
monetize you because
I'm playing his ad.
Exactly.
Also, look at Patsy Cline hiding down there. She should.
I thought that was what you were gonna play.
I was all right.
That voice, bro. Oh.
I could smile for a while.
You hear Elvis in him though?
But I saw you last
Yes.
night. You held my hand so tight as you stopped to say hello.
Come on, this is amazing.
It is. Roy Orbison is the dude.
You couldn't tell that I've been crying over you, crying over you,
over you.
Said so long.
Okay, thanks for humoring me with that one.
No, what are you talking about? Why would they be humored for Roy Orbison?
Yeah, In Dreams, somebody mentions in the chat. In Dreams is great. Love Roy Orbison.
No, he's an unsung hero. I like his voice better than Elvis on most things. Elvis had a great gospel voice, but he's not as celebrated as he should be.
Listening to songs for this, I for some reason started thinking of like breakup songs, and like back when I was an emotional teenager and college student, I had a whole playlist of like songs I like play when I was sad about a girl. One of them is Chris Isaak's "Wicked Game," and it really reminded me a lot of Roy Orbison.
I love him as well. I love Wicked Game. We're getting into the really good part. You guys are gonna have to push me along.
Yeah.
Just real quick, because this will surprise you, Mark. Probably.
Okay.
Okay. Are you familiar with Conway Twitty? He's a country singer.
My mother's favorite singer. One of the first singers I ever heard. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So this is a song. Since you said Roy Orbison sounds like Elvis.
I know what you're gonna play.
You know?
It's only me.
I love this
song.
My
mother's favorite song.
So this is the only Conway Twitty song, guys, that ever, I think it charted on the rock charts. And this is before they were kind of marketing him as like an Elvis style singer. This is 1958, so we're skipping backwards just a little bit. Listen to what he sounds like. It doesn't sound like country Conway Twitty at all.
No.
Myself I can't deceive.
I love this because he just.
I know it's only make believe.
The cover voice.
My one and only prayer is that someday you'll care. My hopes and my dreams come true. My one and only you. No one will ever know.
Listen to it get louder.
How much I love you so. My only prayer will be someday you care for me, but it's only me.
Oh my gosh, it gives me chills.
I love listening to this music because it's not perfect, You know, that's what as I got older and I listened to this again later on in life. It's you. First of all, he goes, "Only make believe," and he kind of covers it, and he does this. I call it, "If I were king of the forest."
Yeah.
It's kind of covered, but there's so much character in that.
Yeah.
And it got louder, and you can hear the change in his voice from the kind of covered sound to where he goes higher. That's something you don't hear now either, because it is all auto-tuned. It's all sanitized. You don't hear any of the imperfections that made that song something I'll never forget. You know, even though it's not perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of that one, Chris?
Can we play some black artists?
Who do you want me to play?
We're on the 60s. Okay, one of the ones on that list was Marvin Gaye.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if you type in Marvin Gaye vocals only.
Oh.
So just how beautiful his man's voice was.
Yes. Marvin Gaye. Only.
Okay, here we go. Vocals
Sam
only.
Cooke's the only one that can beat him for me, I think.
Oh, this is going to be good. Okay.
I knew. Ooh, I bet you're wondering how I knew about your plans to make me blue with some other guy you knew before. Between the two of us, guys, you know I love you more. It took me by surprise, I must say.
Oh,
when I found out yesterday, don't you know that I heard through the grapevine? Not much longer would you be mine. Oh, I heard it through the grapevine.
Put some scrambled eggs on
just about to lose my mind. Honey, honey, well.
Oh my goodness.
Honestly, that
it's just a different level.
I know.
Wow.
Because I was trying to compare again, like I said earlier, compare it to like artists today, and there's no one I could find this level. Because every time I used to have this thing, like every time I get drunk with a friend of mine, I'd always ask him, "What happened to black music?" Wrong? Where do my people go wrong? How do we get Marvin Gaye, Sam Cooke, Aretha Franklin to T-Pain?
I'm with you, man. I'm just Marvin Gaye and Sam Cooke are. We've got to do A Change Is Going to Come by Sam Cooke.
Okay.
That might be my most favorite song in all of existence, which didn't come out until right after he died, by the way. But it hits me in a spot, and I know I'm a culturally appropriate here. I don't know, but it hits me in a spot that I cannot stop from having tears in my eyes, even the happy songs, because the level of their voice cannot be matched. It just can't. This song will get me. And you hear the big band behind him. Listen to this, just first breakout here.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come.
The orchestration of that behind his voice,
it will.
Because it's just this, you had this big orchestrated portion, right? And that hits you, and then all of a sudden it's just, I was born, and then it goes into just a bass with a little drum track. And it's just Sam Cooke, and his voice is like a pearl, man. It's just that smooth. It's that gritty at the same time. You cannot beat that song. You cannot beat that voice on that song. I've heard other people try to sing that song, and they shouldn't. They just shouldn't.
Congress should pass a law. No,
I'm serious. If I were king for a day and I got to pass, don't let ever anybody else sing that song, because nobody can do it like Sam Cooke. Nobody.
So on the list from the 1960s was also Otis Redding and Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. However, I'm going to call an audible here. And that's what that means, right? The baseball term. And I'm going to do what I want to do. Is that what that means?
Term, I think.
Oh,
I think
football.
It's a music show. It's okay. It's
a music show.
Yeah.
I'm going to play a clip from my favorite Otis Redding instead. These Arms of Mine.
These arms are mine. They are lonely, lonely and feeling blue. These arms of mine, they are yearning.
You know what I like about this song? Maybe I can tell you in layman's terms and you can tell me in doctor terms what I'm saying. This song is like Nina Simone's Turn Me On in that it's very calming. And actually you could probably put those two songs on top of each other and they sound very similar. Turn Me On and These Arms of Mine. And back when I was doing a lot of I was a handgun instructor, NRA handgun instructor with a women's shooting group. And one of our other trainers was a singer. And she was like, you should, when you're shooting, to get rid of, like, a lot of people anticipate the shot and they pull the gun down. Anyway, long story short, she's like, if you find a calming song and you sing it in your head, then you're not thinking about when you're going to pull the trigger. And so I had a kind of a stable of songs I would go through when I would do target practice. And this was one of them. This is one of my shooting songs. It's very...
That's an interesting dichotomy there. That's an interesting dichotomy.
Because it's so calming and steady, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I want to hear what Chris has to say about this first, because I got an idea. But
no, I actually haven't heard that particular song.
Oh, really?
Oh.
What I'll say about that, it's just 12 bars. It's in 12/8, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
yes.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's in a 4/4 beat pattern, but
Okay.
you have these subdivisions. 1 dee da dee da da. They would call it a dance in classical music because it would be faster. But what it wants to do is it makes you feel like it wants to go faster. So you get this, like, kind of, it's these arms of mine, and it goes again. It's a bit of text painting because it's like that anticipation before you make love, right? Where you know it's going to happen, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
or it hasn't happened yet, and it's like everything inside you wants to go faster, but you cannot go faster because you might ruin it. And guys might understand this a little better than ladies because we're always on the line of like, well, is this this going to happen? But it wants to go faster. So, and that's something you don't hear in music now too, is this kind of pensive, let us go. And if I remember right, that song does not ever speed up. Like it never goes.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. And so
that's the same with Nina Simone's Turn You On.
Right. Well, and that's it. Turn you on. Right. It is something it's about that period of time before you get to the reward, so to speak. And that's all done through tempo, but it's also done through that rhythm. Beat, dot, dot, beat, dot, dot, beat. And he doesn't dot, beat. You're talking like 54 beats of, BPMs, beat, dot, which feels just eternally slow. And nobody does that kind of thing better than Otis Redding.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, okay. So I have pulled up, I know we got stuck in the 50s and 60s, guys. We got to,
Let's stay there.
I know. I love it. I do want to I have to play just a little clip of the number one song from that decade, because otherwise I would be missing something very important. This is the Rolling Stones.
Was it really the number of the whole decade?
I can't get no
tried, and I tried, and I tried, and I tried.
We got to stop there, but we could listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could think about how amazing it is that the British Empire dominated music from like mid 60s to the mid 90s. I mean, I think all three of us and most people listening probably have at least one of these bands I'm about to name came out of the UK. The Beatles, Rolling Stones, The Who, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Pink Floyd, Depeche Mode, The Police, The Smiths, Radiohead, Oasis,
Queen.
like Queen, yes. Just how many came from this tiny island and dominated most of the music? And it's like, and then they ended it sadly with the Spice Girls.
So tell me what you want, what you really want to say. It's like, I have to tell a story about that song since we just jumped there. Is that kept me through cutting wood one day when I was younger, because it was just cutting wood's really hard. Just want to point that out. And I could not. It was right when that song was really popular, and I could not get that song out of my head. It was just, so tell me what you want. It's just getting me going. And it's like, oh God, kill
You're
me.
just chopping.
Yeah, chopping wood to it. And it's like, shoot me. By the end of the day, I could not listen to Spice Girls. Not that I wanted to in the first place. But you're exactly right, Chris, is that what, and this is again a case. The Rolling Stones and the Beatles, and they were all listening to Chuck Berry. They were listening to Louis Armstrong, who I can't believe is not on this list. There is a song that I'm going to make us go back to, because it might be the best 2 minutes of music ever recorded. But it's back in the 1920s. But they were listening to the music that had come out of America in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and it was all blues. It was all blues. And there's actually a documentary I saw just recently of it's the Rolling Stones, and you've got Bob Dylan, and you've got the Beatles, and they're all kind of playing for each other, and they're sitting in just this room, and they're in between it just is mixtures of them all talking about the older blues music that influenced them, and they brought that across the pond and then made it themselves and then brought it back to us, and that just shows you the universality of music, that it has nothing to do with the color of your skin. It has nothing to do with what you believe, because it has, whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, or a Muslim, or, Cat Stevens, or, I mean, like it has nothing. It transcends all of that. And so that's a good word, Chris. It's a good word.
Yeah. So jumping ahead to the 70s, and since you were talking about all the British influence in popular music, number one song on our list, number one from the 70s, Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality.
It's a choral piece is what that is.
Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see. I'm just a poor boy, I need no sympathy, because I'm easy come, easy go.
I don't want to play much more. I'm afraid we're going to get yanked. Yeah. But
well, first of all, look how many views. This has 1.5 billion views.
Wow.
Which is amazing for song. But one of the things that's so impressive about this song is it's really like 3 songs in one. It works. I don't know how they made it work, but it totally works.
It's theater. It's theater. Well, and if you've watched the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, he talks about that. He was an opera singer. He was trained, to sing opera, and the actually shape of his head, lent to his teeth. He could have fixed his teeth 80 times with all the money, but he didn't want to. I'm talking about Freddie Mercury because he thought it would mess with his sound and the way he projected and stuff. But it was all theater. It was Puccini. It was opera. It was opera, and he actually cribbed a bunch of opera stuff throughout his time with Queen. But then you saw Meatloaf come in, and after that, where it's like, where the rock, literally the rock opera. And I think the Beatles and everybody that kind of came before you, they were very short songs compared to even today's music. Like, you're talking a minute and a half or, 2 minutes tops. And this 9 minutes long, I think, is that song, to keep someone's attention was unheard of during that time.
It was so different. Yeah. Okay. So also on the list, again, as we go on, we might get stuck. So, I mean, Stevie Wonder's on this list, Superstition. These are the top 10 songs from the 70s. Don McLean, American Pie. I'm not going to play that song, but we all know that song.
That's 10 minutes
Zeppelin.
long, too.
Yeah, Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles, Hotel California. The Bee Gees, Staying Alive. John Lennon's Imagine. Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water. And then this song from 1970, The Beatles.
Take 23. Feel it going, leap it up a bit or something.
Don't say that word.
Awfully. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
Speaking of getting emotional, this song will make me cry.
You want to... as I was saying earlier, they are the best songwriters. I don't like to hear them sing their own songs. I'm not that he's bad, okay? I mean, he's Paul McCartney, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But the best version of this song is from Across the Universe, and if you want to play it. But it's like it's they turn it gospel, and it is one of the most powerful. And I'm a choir guy, so I'm always gonna love choir music. But you want to cry to this song? That's the song that will just reach down and pull your guts out of your mouth. Like it is. But nobody writes that in Yesterday or Blackbird. I mean, nobody was writing that kind of melodic change, even with the longer songs, that you would see like American Pie and stuff like that. But that's what made them great, is their writing and drugs.
And drugs.
Which helped with the writing.
Oh, we got some Beatles haters in the chat. Why does this always happen? And it's like people, and sometimes people, I'm learning that people are sort of, they either love it's like a football team rivalry. They're like, no, I'm the Rolling Stones. No, I'm for the Beatles. It's like, can't you be for both?
Right.
I get how, some people just don't dig the Beatles and stuff, but it's undeniable the influence they had on music. And so from that point of view, I don't think they're overrated when people consider their influence. Now, if you want to say the actual sound is all right, but not their influence.
Well, here's my maybe unpopular opinion, although I shared it in another episode and a couple people in the chat agreed. I don't like Bob Dylan. So that's mine. Like, that's mine. I just...
What's not like about Bob Dylan? Keri, come on.
Just he can't sing.
He can't sing, but he writes. That's the thing, is that the words were so powerful. That's what I think with the Beatles too. It's just the depth of their lyrics, especially in and around the time and the change they made, because they were only a band for a very short time. They only put out a few albums, you know what I mean? And within that time, they completely changed the landscape of not just music itself, but the way music was marketed. I mean, it's the Beatles. Elvis started this process, but then he went and started making very bad movies. But where you see their picture on everything, and out of the rise of the middle class, for the first time had disposable income, and you had the first real high schoolers that were demanding some of that income. You sort of see the Beatles everywhere on everything. I mean, whether it's balls or lunch boxes or whatever, and they changed the landscape of everything when it came to music.
They did. moving ahead to the 80s, number one song from that decade, according to our list. Are you excited?
Shouldn't be shocked though.
Huh?
You got to know. I'm just telling people shouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be shocked about what?
What the number one song is in the 80s.
Oh, here we go.
Master. The Police.
Aw.
She was more like a beauty queen from a movie scene. I said, don't mind, but what do you mean? I am the one who would dance on the floor and around. She said, I am the one who would dance on the floor and around. She told me her name was Billie Jean as she crossed the scene. Then heavy hair turned with the ice to dream of being the one who would dance on the floor and around. People always told me, be careful what you do. Don't go around breaking young girls' hearts. And mother always told me, be careful who you love. Be careful what you do. She just a girl, but that I am the one. But the kid is not my son.
Okay.
Oh.
Sorry, I had to play quite a bit of that one, but we had to hear the chorus. What to say?
Michael Jackson is Mozart. If there's somebody that transcended, I mean, Mozart was, or lived a second life. Mozart was a child prodigy, and was kind of by his father, traipsed around Europe and to perform at a very young age because he had a gift that transcended the logic of possibility, like at a young age. And if you go back, maybe we'll just go back and watch, ABC and Michael Jackson dance completely while he's singing, and he jumped from age to age and completely dominated every single era. And if that's not God given, I don't know what is, because he's the guy.
Yeah,
you can still hear his influence in today.
Yeah.
Bruno Mars.
Yes, yes. Well, but not even just in dance too. His performance.
Yeah.
When you talk about Thriller and you talk about just Smooth Criminal or even any of that stuff, Michael Jackson is the pinnacle of pop music. He's as good as it will ever get, I think.
And he's supercharged. I want to do a future episode on MTV, but he supercharged MTV when Billie Jean came out. It was a huge hit, and MTV got even more popular. It's amazing for one song having such a huge influence, and really his entire catalog, but especially that Thriller album.
So from the 80s, now you can imagine, guys, we could stay here forever too. I mean, there's so many great. Listen to this list. This is in order. They have the top 10 songs from the 1980s. We just heard Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. Okay, The Police, Every Breath You Take. Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine. Oh, we played that in marching band. On the clarinet.
Now that's a rock instrument right there.
Prince, When Doves Cry. Joan Jett, I Love Rock and Roll. U2, With or Without You. Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer. Lionel Richie and Diana Ross, Endless Love. Van Halen's Jump. And then Michael Jackson made the list twice. He's on there with Beat It. And they don't even have REO Speedwagon on here. I saw somebody in the chat mention them. I love REO Speedwagon. Didn't make it though. What are you laughing for? Why are you laughing?
I was thinking I came across the mic, but
huh?
No, my mic probably cut off. I was singing the lyrics.
Oh, okay. We got the porn spam bot in the chat again, guys.
Oh,
Oh.
they're trying to add to the soundtrack.
Let me see if I can block that person. There we go.
It was interesting because I was thinking about how one, you had a hard rock song on the list with Guns N' Roses, and again showing, the subgenres that were getting more popular and becoming mainstream genres. But I was thinking about how interesting it is to think about vocal styles and how no matter what time period it is, there's someone who can sing like whatever singer you're thinking about. So you can think about like medieval times, and there was some monk who could sing like Axl Rose, but he had no reason to sing like it.
That's true, yeah.
All right, yeah. He could have done that. When everyone's going, there was some guy who's like singing Marvin Gaye, like, ooh, baby.
Yeah. Where is
that
all
just
this
weird to think about?
undiscovered talent? Yeah. Yeah. It's all about being in the right place at the right time, You're either clicking or you're, singing.
Mr. Chris, I just have to. This is from earlier, but Two Scissors and Some Yarn says Chris kills me.
I try.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Should we stay on the 80s a little or move on? Is there anyone from the 80s we absolutely have to play before I move on?
From that list, no, I mean, I love the 80s. That's probably my favorite decade for music overall. And so there's so much. When I way after the 80s, music sucked. And so I listened to a lot of 80s stuff, and that was the soundtrack to my high school years.
Yeah.
So I have a weird kind of connection to 80s music, even though I didn't, go to high school in the 80s or anything. So.
I mean, I agree. In looking at this list, pretty much every decade, I like every song on the list, even if it wasn't my favorite. Like, you have an appreciation for it, and until you get way down and where we started, where I don't know some of those songs from the 1890s, but like the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, they're all great songs. But now we're getting into the 90s.
Oh, here we go.
And this is when, in my opinion, not a doctor, but I think I think this is when things started to go awry. You still have some great music, and again, this is the top 10 list. But on this list, you've got things like Oasis, Wonderwall. Okay, really? From the
It's white people love that song, Keri. I told you that's on my list. Songs white people all sing to at 1 o'clock in the morning at a bar.
Chris has a list of songs that only white people will sing to at 1 a.m.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you already know what number one is.
What is it?
It's an 80s song.
Is it Sweet Caroline?
No, but that's not. I'd probably say that's
Neil Diamond. Yeah.
Number one is Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Told a friend about my list, and then the song comes on, and people start singing. I'm like, look at all these white people singing. I didn't make that up.
No, you're right.
You're right. And in the South, you can add some country in there, like Friends in Low Places.
Oh yeah, that was at a bar when it happened. I was like, "What's happening, Keri? I'm scared."
And every time it comes on, the entire crowd will start singing it.
That's true.
Because Garth is that. I mean, nobody sold more albums than that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell a story about Garth Brooks.
Okay.
I met Garth Brooks. I was judging a middle school voice contest. So they would get middle school choir directors from around the state to come and do vocal contests for OSSAA, which is just, you go and you have a district and a state competition and you get 1s or 2s or 3s or whatever. It's kind of just a competition. And I'm in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and I'm sitting in this room. They put you in just these little rooms all by themselves, all by yourself, and the kids just cycle in and they sing a little art song and you give them a score and you give them notes to help, get better or whatever. And all of a sudden there's just this crazy rampage outside of the door, and the door's shut. I'm in there all by myself. I don't know what's going on, and all of a sudden this giant group of people, because if the judge will allow, the people can come in and listen to the student, if the student's okay with it. And this whole group of people just rustles in, and then the last person is a little shorter, bigger. He's a pretty chubby guy. Comes up and he just comes up to me. He's got a hat on, just like he goes, "Hello, I'm Garth Brooks," and I'm like, "Oh God!" And I look down, and there's his daughter's name, and I'm like, "Oh God, please let her be good. Please let her be good, because I cannot give Garth Brooks' daughter not a one here." And she was good. She was fine. So
She was good.
Yeah, she was fine. But, and he was like, "All right, hey, thank you very much." And I'm like, "Okay, thanks, Garth Brooks." Like, and that was the highlight of my day. And I was like, "Wow, I just met." So.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Garth Brooks because I grew up listening to him on the radio in the South, and I like his Shameless cover of Billy Joel's Shameless.
Uh-huh.
I think is really good. My husband and I have to agree to disagree on this. He's not a big fan of Garth Brooks, but I like him. Hey,
He
so
has more songs that people know than anybody else. If I had to compare him to somebody, and this is going to not be a direct comparison, but in terms of his output of music, he's kind of like Michael Jackson. He has all of his songs are like number one. You know what I mean? Anything Michael Jackson put out for the entire for the majority of his career had, the tip top of the charts, sometimes two at once, and Garth Brooks was like that for country music. He transcended. He went into pop, and not many country stars did that. So.
Yeah. So this list, by the way, we are. I will say, if any listeners, I'm sorry, we're doing the most popular songs of each decade, and so we're skipping a lot of great music, like country music. Like we didn't even hit some of my favorites, like Patsy Cline, Dolly Parton in the '80s. I mean, come on, we just left the '80s, but that's because we're doing the most popular songs, and you're not finding a lot of on the pop music charts. A lot of these crossover artists. Okay, so the 1990s. Number one song from that decade.
By Dolly Parton, speaking of her.
This was written by Dolly Parton. Yep.
Yes, it was.
If I
one of the best singers ever.
Should stay, I would only be in your way, so I'll go, but I know I'll think of you every step of
Kevin Costner.
the way.
Listen to her though, like listen. And she can do this live too. That's the crazy part.
And I will always love you. Will always love you.
So I will say this, maybe unpopular opinion, but I do see some in the chat agreeing. I actually prefer Dolly Parton's version of this song. I know that's a no to say. I love Whitney Houston, beautiful voice, but I like the Dolly version. I think it's more it's less overproduced, and I like the music better, and I like Dolly.
Yeah.
Are you gonna kick me out of my own studio?
No.
Okay.
If we could take a moment and just find there's a live version of her singing this song.
Okay.
And tell me that what is amazing about Whitney Houston is she could sound just like that. When she was at her prime, I think it's 91, 92 when this came out. There's a specific live version, and her control over her voice. When I talk about breath support, she could hold a note for an interminable amount of time that's soft. And that's the thing. It's easy to sing loud, and you may expel more air, but to sing something in that kind of mix where she was holding that note and be able to hold it in tune and then shimmer at the end and then do the vocal gymnastics that came with it, that's another God-given talent. But she also just you could tell that she had practiced, and all of her practice was done in church when she was a kid. But it's the
Can
control.
we actually, instead of playing a live version of that, can we play the video that Chris referenced earlier? That kind of That very
yeah.
famous.
Yeah, do that. Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
This one gives me goosebumps. Ugh.
Aw.
And then she took a knee, and we're like, "Whoa!" She's
Oh, wow!
God,
Doesn't that make you nostalgic?
It does.
Well,
People
think
actually
about all
care.
the. Well, but think about all the. Things were not easy then. This is 91, 92. This is right before the LA riots and Rodney King, and right before O.J. Simpson and the things that came out of that. But there was still a unified American spirit that, hey, things aren't perfect, but we are all together. You know what I mean? And sports kind of did that too. I mean, this was done at the Super Bowl, right? So it's like, that's what we lost over the last few years is this. There's a spirit here that we should be striving for, and now we have to divert and divvy up everything. You know, it's like one will kneel and one will stand. But something I want to say about her singing that is that Whitney Houston is more capable than almost anybody else you will listen to of doing the vocal gymnastics. We've all heard the national anthem just be put into this melismatic, you know, it's where you almost can't hear the melody. But she knew, part of her genius was she knew when to and when not to. She knew how to use the enhancement of melisma and things like that to enhance the melody as opposed to distracting from it. And that was just part of her greatness too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Couple of super chats. Let's see. Fake Thai dude gives us 5 samosas. That's food. That's the Indian food. 5 of those. Plenty of awesome music in every genre nowadays. You just need to know where to look. Hint, not in the mainstream. Yes, I completely agree. The point, though, just to reiterate this, because people keep saying there is good music, you need to know where to find it. I agree. We're talking about popular music and why has popular music, why is what is the mainstream, what is popular, why has that become so bad, in our opinion, right? Like,
We
but I
haven't even
agree.
gotten there yet.
I know we haven't
about
even.
what we like.
We might have to do a part 2 at this point, guys. If you have to go, let me know. Aria Speedwagon. Yes, thank you, Sarah. I agree. And then Cheeky Mare, $1.99 says for the demonetization and a Nat King Cole request. Oh, we didn't do Nat King Cole. Okay, we're gonna do that just for you, Cheeky Mare. I'm making a note of it.
He smoked to keep his voice that way.
And then Matthew Hammond, $4.99. Thank you, sir. Says, did any of the UK music I recommended pique your interest? Oh, yes. I believe you're the person on Twitter who gave me a lot of things to listen to. I haven't been able to listen to them yet, but it all interested me. I'm going to take a listen. Some of them I recognize, some of them I didn't. So thank you. I hope to get a lot of good recommendations out of tonight's show. Oh, and then one more. Georgia, thank you for the $2. Says late 60s request. Night is a Comin' by the Warm Sounds. What is that? Night is a Comin'. I'm just making a note. Okay. If we have time, we're going to hit that one too. Okay. Thank you guys. This is fun. This video might not just be demonetized. It might get fully taken down. If I think,
usually are probably still be up on our backup channels because
we are on Rumble, we are on Odyssey. So okay, from the 90s, we're not going to play it. We're already almost 2 hours in, so I'll just say some on this list, and I'd like to hear the opinion of your opinion, Chris, and yours, Mark, because I don't think some of these, yes, they may have been the top 10 of the 90s, but I don't think they held a candle to some of the top 10 from the previous decades that we've talked about. Listen to this list. Okay, Whitney Houston, I'll Always Love You. Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Meh. Brian Adams, Everything I Do It For You.
Okay, that's all.
I mean, okay, but does it hold up to Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody? I mean,
no.
Nothing
by Brian Adams holds up to anything by Queen.
Sinead O'Connor's Nothing Compares to You. I like it, but Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On. Really?
At least the girl can sing.
True.
You know what I mean? I mean, the Celine Dion's up there with Whitney Houston in terms of her ability to
That's
sing.
true.
So
Elton John's Candle in the Wind. Okay, I like this one. Okay, maybe that
Yeah.
should be on. That holds up to some of the others, I think. REM's Losing My Religion. I like that song, but how does that stand up to some of these top 10 from the previous decades?
it doesn't.
And then Oasis, Wonderwall.
See, and you miss the great songs like Presidents of the United States of America, like "Going to the Country, Gonna Eat a Lot of Peaches." You know,
What?
or, you never heard that? You never heard that? Look it up. You gotta play it. You gotta go. You never heard "Going to the Country, Gonna Eat a Lot of Peaches"?
What? No.
Oh, come on. That's like the
It's a 90s song?
or the
Oh my
with the
goodness.
real deep voice guy. I can't think of his name.
I think this is the band. This is so
or
weird.
Blues Traveler is not on that list. That's amazing to me too.
I think that this band, it was recommended to me by my husband, the one that you just recommended, Peaches.
Presidents of the United States
Yeah.
of America. Yeah.
Just the other day. Okay, let me just hit the last two on the list from the 90s.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, these are again top 10 most
Crash Test Dummies. That's
top 10 popular songs from the 90s. The Macarena is on here, and then U2's One.
U2 is so overrated. I'm sorry.
So instead of listening to any of those, I'm going to pull up the song you said I have to listen to from the 90s.
Peaches, yeah. This is what.
Moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. I'm moving to the country, I'm gonna eat me a lot of peaches.
You never heard this song?
I'm moving to the
I don't
country, I'm gonna eat a lot
This is
of
pretty much it.
peaches.
This does this a lot.
Moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot.
That's the whole song?
Yeah, pretty much.
You're making me think of when was They Might Be Giants, Particle Man. Particle Man.
I think that was 90s, wasn't it?
Is that 90s?
I think we're losing Chris here. He's not.
Okay, we're done. We're done. I mean, and even though I like They Might Be Giants, again, doesn't hold up to the 50s music.
No, it doesn't.
Or the 70s or the.
It's all kind of kitschy. And I'm surprised that Alanis Morissette didn't hit anything on that list.
Right?
You know, at least she was. I mean, that's rock. You know what I mean? And it's just like angsty rock. She's so much better than Nirvana was. So
yeah,
whatever.
I think the 90s were very front loaded in terms of all the good music, and this top 10 list isn't representative of a lot of music that existed. But you think about grunge, because I love the grunge bands, and yes, Nirvana is overrated. I mean, Nirvana and the other grunge bands are played simultaneously on modern rock stations and classic rock stations. So it tells you a lot about, the lack of progression in music today. But I still love a lot of grunge. It's good. You have a lot of hip hop. Hip hop was really getting popular in the mainstream. I'm surprised we didn't see Tupac or Biggie on this list. I love New Jack Swing from there. Mid-90s techno, with LaBouche and Hadaway and all these other great, house songs, Eurodance songs. There was a lot of great music in early to mid 90s, but then in the late 90s when things started to trail off, in my opinion, because that's when we started to seeing the emergence of all these boy bands, NSYNC, 93, Christina Aguilera, and Britney Spears. And we saw so many
Boys.
Britney Spears sounds like one of those dolls if you were to pull the string on the back of it. You know what I mean?
She has it's not a strong voice. Like, it kind of reminds almost like Paula Abdul, because Paula Abdul didn't have a great voice, even though I kind of like some music. But Britney Spears, you could tell how much the marketing played a factor in her become big as she did, because she did not have strong voice. And like I was saying earlier, comparing singers from, let's say, late 90s till today, few of them hold a candle to many of the singers we were just mentioning. You know, Whitney Houston, even though a lot of the arrangements aren't great, but her song or her voice is amazing. Freddie Mercury's voice is amazing. Marvin Gaye, all the ones we've talked about, and there's not as many modern, voices that can compare to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird to me because obviously there's a great singers out there, but for whatever reason, it's like they're not being chosen by these big record companies to be a part of these,
Yeah.
big pop songs or whatever.
Well, and I think you can see an interesting thing between Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears, because Christina Aguilera is an amazing singer. I mean,
Yeah.
the girl's got pipes. She's amazing. And the fact that Britney Spears was bigger than her, she sold more albums, but she is an example of how marketing took over the talent, I think, a little bit, because and that changed as I think the decade went into the early 2000s, right? Because then Britney Spears kind of trailed off, at 5 years in, and then Christina Aguilera became bigger. But I mean, Christina Aguilera is one of the only ones I can think of that would just pure vocal talent hold up to those ones that you mentioned in the past. So
yeah, she sang, but I always thought she tried to sound black a little too much,
yeah,
like, well, stretch things out,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
that seemed like she was trying to impress the audience by showing her range. Like,
She didn't have what Whitney Houston had in just terms of the knowing when to and when not to, Yeah.
I want to reiterate some of what you're saying, Mr. Chris, and just express maybe the 90s is when I started becoming an old person, or maybe the music just started sucking, because I never got on board with, I've always felt like, I guess, a Debbie Downer when it comes to some of the people that I still think of them as new, like Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, all that crap. I don't like any of it. And I know that makes me an odd man out a lot of the time, but the boy bands, Backstreet Boys, all that NSYNC, no, there was just something missing. It just seemed so manufactured to me, and they couldn't reproduce it live very. I mean, I would rather listen to Milli Vanilli, and I know they're fake, and I like Milli Vanilli.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat said that, yeah, Milli Vanilli, yeah, they were great.
Yeah,
Girl,
something
you
about
know it's true.
I was doing research and listening to all this music, and I've been trying to describe exactly, what I think went wrong in terms of the actual sound, and I struggled to articulate it, but something about the way it's produced. And I sent you a video by Roger Scruton, and I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, but he talks about, in his view, the reason why modern music stuck was that it was too technical. There wasn't a lot of imperfection or any imperfections really, with everything being so fake. So many of the sounds, the drums, the basses, some of these things were not real instruments, and they were done at these super, they're so perfect that it kind of created something that was foreign. And I kind of agree with that, but as someone who listens to a lot of electronic music today, a lot of electronic music is all fake in terms of the beats and bass and everything. But to me, there's a big difference between that and a lot of what's being played on the radio. And we might as well, I lump the early 2000s, first decade 2000s with today. So let's just talk about it in general. That's cool. It's 2 hours anyway.
Yeah.
But as I was going through that list from the first decade of 2000s to 2020, or not 20, the 20 teens, I guess. And then the last couple of years, like the songs on these lists that I either liked or thought were okay were all songs that either directly sampled from old songs or they were made in the style of old songs. So first decade of the 2000s, songs on that list, which was a pretty terrible list overall, and these two songs I don't actually really like that much, but I thought they're okay. Beyonce, Crazy in Love, and Gnarls Barkley, Crazy. So Beyonce's song, and I don't even like Beyonce, but she sampled a song from a soul song from the 1970s. So it has that 70s kind of sound to it. And Gnarls Barkley for Crazy sampled a song from a 1960s spaghetti western film, so it has that. And then as I went to the following decade, when I was looking at songs there, Uptown Funk, which I do like Uptown Funk, that is a 80s funk song, basically. Mark Ronson. It's a Mark Ronson song. A lot of people think it's Bruno Mars, but it's Mark Ronson.
Mark Ronson with Bruno Mars.
That up 80s funk, and they actually got sued by like 4 different bands, the Gap Band being one of them. Gap Band's one of my favorite because they took the vocal chant, where it goes uptown, funk you up. They took that from the Gap Band, oops, upside your head. Say oops, upside your head.
They did.
I think the Gap Band got like 17% royalties on that song now, or something like that. That's pretty crazy. But that song, Adele can sing. I like Adele's voice. Rolling in the Deep, that's a 60s. That's kind of 60s soul throwback there. And then as I went to the last couple of years, and I feel so old because a lot of these people have no idea who they are. It's like amazing. Like looking on YouTube, they got like hundreds of millions of views. I'm like, I have no idea who you are. So like, I made a little list. So in 2020, number one song was The Weeknd. I don't like The Weeknd's voice, but I like that song, The Blinding Lights, because it's straight up 80s synth. It's 80s synth song. It sounds like something from the 80s. And they also had Dua Lipa. I don't know how to say her name's woman who sings, but she had a song from I think last year, Levitating, and that's like again like a 70s infused house, deep house kind of sound to it. So all of these songs that I either like or think are okay directly borrow from the past. And so all these new stuff are just bad rap songs that use horrific auto-tune with these trap beats, these very repetitive sounds, which a lot of rap's repetitive, and a lot of rap doesn't have choruses, but these don't have choruses. And it's like either that or the slow ballad type song. So a dance song, a rap song, or a ballad type song. I'm sorry.
Right. Or it's stuff. Go ahead.
Sorry, go. I was going to say
Okay. Go, Keri. Go, Keri. I'm going to take over. Go, Keri.
I forgot to mention. Oh, sorry. Never mind. Go ahead. I'm rude.
Oh my gosh. No, you go.
Fine. I'm going. All right. So the one other song I forgot to mention that I kind of liked was the Nas X one that Billy Ray Cyrus on, and Nas X on the song. Billy Ray Cyrus, Old Town Road. Billy Ray Cyrus actually fits that song, and I wish Nas X was kicked off of it. But one of the other reasons why I like the song, it's sampled from a 9 Inch Nails song, and I love 9 Inch Nails. So again, sampling from songs in the past and make all these songs that are at least decent to mediocre, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I will just say that is a common practice throughout time, but it increased exponentially in the 90s into the early 2000s. I think the first one I can really think of coming from the 90s is Vanilla Ice, sampling what is it, the Queen song Emotion, or no, is it bam 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 ba da dam bam 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 bam.
Yeah,
and that's that. From that point on, it seemed like that was
under pressure.
Yeah, it seemed to increase and increase, and but it mixed with the songs that would do it before would kind of do it, or the dance songs. I wanted to mention this from what you said earlier. The dance songs are supposed to sound manufactured, so you suspend your that's going to happen, so you can appreciate it for what it is. The other pop songs that sound manufactured are manufactured but are supposed to not sound manufactured, and that gives it just this kind of surface level blah. You know what I mean? It's like they're not trying to be true to anything other than what is going to catch the ear and keep it in your head. You know what I mean? And so they can play it on the radio. That's when I also started hearing a marked change in the early 2000s, when it was just, you heard the same damn songs on the radio all the time, on the pop charts, as opposed to a little bit earlier where you would have some variety, even on the pop channels.
Now seems like a good time to bring this up. Let me pull up this article. There's a couple of articles about this actually. So, you guys know who Dr. Luke is?
No.
Okay, so I think people know him from working with Kesha. There was like a lawsuit he was involved with.
Oh,
and
yes. Okay. I know
but he's written for a ton of modern popular singers, and there's a couple articles about him. This is an article someone sent me. It's from the New York Post. It says every song you love was written by the same two guys. Well, no, it wasn't. Let me tell you, Larry, because I don't love these songs. But to popular culture, yes. If you scroll down, they're talking about okay, so songwriting today is not the romantic notion of one kid with a guitar. As John Seabrook writes in his new book, The Song Machine, it's an impersonal, assembly line driven process that would make Henry Ford proud. For Rihanna, quote, A-list producers and top liners were summoned to Los Angeles for 2 weeks and installed in studios around the city, creating what Seabrook calls a pop-up hit factory. These superstar producers and writers included Neo, the Stargate team, and Esther Dean, one of music's most successful top liners. Blah, blah, blah. Stargate and Dean would become frequent collaborators with hits such as Katy Perry's Firework on their resume. And then it goes on to detail what the songwriting process is like. But let me see if I can scroll down just a little bit. The track and hook method. Okay, Seabrook calls the modern method of song creation track and hook, indicating the split between the writing of the beat, which is the track, and the hooks, the melodies. He distinguishes this method from the more traditional melody and lyrics, often referred to on older albums as music and lyrics. The track and hook method was invented by reggae producers in Jamaica, Seabrook writes, who made one rhythm track and invited 10 or more aspiring singers to record a song over it. Today, track and hook has become the pillar and post a popular song. It's common practice for a producer to send the same track to multiple top liners, in extreme cases as many as 50, and choose the best melody from among the submissions. And it talks about how mechanized it is, and then look at this. Beyonce's Halo and Kelly Clarkson's Already Gone were both produced by the super producer Ryan Tedler. It says Halo hit number 5 first, and when Clarkson heard the song, she thought it sounded too much like her song Already Gone and feared the public would think she copied Beyonce. Yeah, because you're all using the same teams, right? They're all using the same guys. And so Max Martin is one of these guys. Dr. Luke is another one. And if you go through the list of all the songs that they've engineered, it's a lot of songs for people like engineered's not the right word, but assembled.
No, it is exactly the right word.
Okay. Backstreet Boys. It's like all of these same kind of guys, the ones that we're saying, what's up here? These sounded kind of like, in my layman's terms, it just, some of those from the 90s, it just sounded like they all started to sound the same. Well, it's because it was the same team writing a bunch of these songs.
Mm-hmm. Well, the show Songland, I think I mentioned this to you, really actually showcases this, because what you do is you get these songwriters that come in, and it's basically like a American Idol for songwriters, and you have Ryan Tedder and the one of them, that you just mentioned, and they hear these songs, and then what they do is they pick 3, and each of the engineers takes them into their studio for a week, and then redoes the song and throws it out to be a pop hit. And you can really see, and they work with all, whether it's lots of people you would know to then put these songs out on the radio. And it's literally the same tracks. You hear the same, even amongst the 3, where you hear the same kind of backgrounds, the same tracks, sometimes the same melodies pop out. But they've also done studies, and this is something that you would hear a lot in like a music theory class, is that they've done studies to actually figure out what the brain likes to hear, like a paginatura. NPR did a story on this, that it's in Adele's music. Adele's music was where a note jumps up and steps down, so that hits the mental capacity, or the mental heartstrings of people, and so you will hear songs with that step up or that leap up and that step down, that little motive in everything Adele does. It's just full of appoggiatura, and that's all science now.
It's become, it's not just they're using an algorithm, like they're using the science, but then they're even using the one human element that's there. It's like the same couple of humans doing this guy, the Max Martin, he engineered songs behind hits behind Ace of Base, Backstreet Boys, and then he went on to they were trying to find a song for an unknown teenage singer named Britney Spears. Guess what? He gave her a song he had written called Hit Me Baby One More Time. She sold 500,000 copies of that single the day it was released. Then he went on to do #1 singles for NSYNC, Pink, Maroon 5. He played a pivotal role in Katy Perry's career, Taylor Swift, all of her blockbuster releases. This is all the same guy. And then Dr. Luke, he did something similar. He worked with Avril Lavigne, Miley Cyrus. That's why all this stuff sounds the same. I know I'm just the old person ranting now, but
no,
guys,
it's the truth. It's the truth.
Here, let me drop this article in the chat. You guys can read it. Okay. Should we play any of this crap?
I mean, if I was seeing a lot of this stuff, like the stuff I remember from the early 2000s is the anti, which was almost its own commercial market itself. Blink 182 or Eminem or Limp Bizkit or whatever it was. It was in a direct opposition to that, and you had a giant angsty, rejection of that by a lot of teenagers. And there's a Netflix documentary out now about the '99 Woodstock, which was kind of that. It's just angry rejection of exactly what you're talking about. And they didn't produce great music in many cases, but at least it was not all the same. And at least it wasn't all. And Eminem was that. I mean, he literally just became famous by just, making fun of these people, not to mention being just a great wordsmith or whatever, but it was a direct reaction to what you're talking about.
And something else I noticed when looking at the list too is I didn't see any songs that had heavy guitars.
Yeah.
Like you might have a little guitar strumming or something, but nothing like really heavy. And begs the question, like, do you, and this is both of you, do you think, or when do you think like a hard rock song will return to like the mainstream, like top 20, or do you think it will ever return?
What do you think, Mark?
I think I've actually read something recently about this, that there is and this goes into the wokeness issue, is that a lot of music has now moved away from what would be considered expressing the feelings of young angry white men. You know what I mean? Like, and this is something I've read in several different places, that when you're talking about punk rock or you're talking about metal, this is all rooted in whiteness or rooted in angry white culture, and that's what I read, and so there's a concerted effort in the name of inclusion to exclude that, and so rock music itself, until I think we see a change in that, I don't think that popular music will return to that, because I don't think they will let it. You may see a subculture that develops that's more akin to like punk rock, but it will also then just be called Trump music or something.
Oh yeah, that's totally what they'll call it.
Yeah.
People in the chat were pointing out how I think it's Metallica's Master of Puppets is in the top 10 right now because of Stranger Things. It's an old song, obviously, from the
Yeah.
80s. But I'm wondering, will that have a larger influence on the taste of young people who listen to top 10, top 40 type stuff? Or do you think they'll just still buy into the regular
It's
pop?
not just that one. It's also, because of Stranger Things, young people are now listening to Kate Bush, okay?
Mhm.
And that's suddenly, hitting the charts and because of that show. And I was in, this at the very beginning of the stream, I told you about I hang out with young people once a week and listen to their playlists. And recently, they had a bunch of crap, and then it all sounded the same. And then right in the middle of it, they had a Kenny Loggins song, and it's probably because Top Gun is out right now. They had a Kenny Loggins Danger Zone, and I'm like, what? Like at least it made it to their playlist. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something I think you should point out here that no, I haven't heard anybody really talk about is bifurcated markets. Okay, like the ubiquity of radio is gone because the ubiquity of watching television. I think Game of Thrones, for example, will be one of the last television shows that everybody gathers around on a mass level to watch. It's like the end of Cheers, at the end of Seinfeld, or the end of Friends. These were things that people started that millions, and the end of MASH or whatever it is. They all came to the television to watch this thing at the same time. The same thing happened with music. And because of Spotify, because of Apple Music, because you can curate your own playlists, because nobody wants to hear commercials, you now have these bifurcated markets. And so what is determined the most popular music is actually dictated to us. So the top 40 may not be what is the most listened to thing in many different ways. It's what is the most listened to thing by the producers who choose which list is that they're going to prioritize above the other. And so I think, and I'm seeing this everywhere, even now you see it with Twitter. It's like James Lindsay just got kicked off Twitter. He's a friend of mine. I have to mention that, but it's like everybody's now going to Minds or to Truth or whatever, and even Elon Musk is saying he's going to start another Twitter alternative. Some of the most pernicious segregation in our society or the pernicious censorship is segregation, because now we're all being put into different places.
Yes.
Not everybody's going into Twitter. Not everybody's going to Facebook. We're now going to places where you can actually say what you want when you couldn't say it over here. And so I think that's going to create this market in terms of music where you don't have a return of rock music in the culture, because it's not going to be allowed to. It'll be pushed over here and it'll stay there. It'll be with the Trump people, or it'll be, and then you'll have these people that listen to this kind of music, and these people, it's almost like a Tower of Babel situation. We're not going to all speak the same language anymore. And that's kind of sad. Even if the language is bad.
Yeah. Lettuce says inventive original pop music is an existential threat to the music industry cathedral.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me of something. Little Ragamuffin was here earlier. I don't know if she's still here. If you are, hello, lady. She said something way early in the stream. She said, music feeds the soul, and that's why they killed music, to kill the soul.
Mm-hmm.
Something worth thinking about.
And that's what I kind of describe, like a lot of this modern pop music. It's just like black soul. There's just something empty and sterile about it, and I can't quite articulate it, but it's just it's missing something that other songs in the past had.
It is missing humanity. Mark.
Yeah, well, it is. It's humanity, because God, one of my favorite quotes is, God gave us music so we can pray without words. And when you listen to Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, when you listen to these things, even if you're not a classical music aficionado or whatever, and you think it's too long or there's everyone who hears Beethoven 5 or the Brahms Requiem, there are going to be portions of that, because you've all heard it, whether you know it or not, because it's in movies, it's in whatever, then it moves you, because it's all built on a creative soul. And that's why I think soul, when you listen to Marvin Gaye, that he sang with the soul. That's what came out of the African American church. What came out of blues. It's what came out of country music. To be honest, it's all pain. It's all joy. It's all pain and joy at the same time. When you start manufacturing this stuff like a cookie cutter, you remove the humanity from it, and it's all algorithm. Why would we like it?
Yeah.
I mean, sure, it's catchy, whatever, but it doesn't even have like what Michael Jackson would do, where he would come in and you would have those riffs, but everything he did was different. He didn't just, it was all different, and it was part of his journey. And you can hear his journey in the music. He's text painting his life. You don't hear that from people now.
You know what you're making me think of is because it's by algorithm in the creation of it and in what they're choosing that does still get played on terrestrial radio. It's algorithm, and then you've got the same people in the room. And now I've even seen, there was an article we covered on the show this past week from Billboard saying, we need to start making sure we have quotas for more gay and lesbian songwriters. Oh, great. Introduce quotas into the creative space, like based on sexuality and race and gender. And you're totally taking the humanity out of it. And I think that's part of the reason why. So when I do listen to these young people who've curated their playlists each week, a lot of times these are their favorite songs and they're singing along with them, and they don't even listen to the full song. Now, part of that's because they're used to, they're a TikTok generation. They're used to scrolling, and they're doing the same thing with music. And so they'll put their songs on, and then they'll sing a couple bars, and then they just go to the next song. But the other reason I think this just occurs to me with what you're saying, Mark. The other reason I think they're able to do that seamlessly is because they're all the same.
Yeah.
They're all the same, and they're just hitting like a little bit of this song, a little bit of that song, and these are supposedly their favorite songs. They can't even listen to one from beginning to end.
Yeah. Well, in the attention span.
Yeah.
It makes it, as a music teacher, it destroys me because I've seen it happen. I started teaching in 2009. But before that, I was, in high school, obviously but over the course of that time, as I look back, with the loss of the attention span comes a rise in angst, but not the kind of like early 90s angst, not the Nirvana angst, not the angry angst. At least anger was a feeling, you know what I mean? That wasn't fear. And now it's all like they can't take something in long enough to have a real feeling about it because it might make them think of something that is either unpleasant or joyful. And we're conditioning them because just like Pavlov's dog, right? We're conditioning them to never dive into anything. That's why musicians now, to have a piano player, to have somebody who can really master a musical instrument is getting harder and harder to find in younger generations because they don't have, my wife's a violinist and she would tell me stories about how when she was 8, she would sit and practice for 3 hours, and just a lick after lick after lick and that kind of discipline. With that comes a freedom. With that comes an actual ability to then apply that to the rest of your life. And I don't think that, the regime or whatever you want to call it, they don't want the kids to think that way anymore. They want them to grab the bite of what they want, be happy with that bite, and move on to the next bite. Because guess what? For every next bite, for every shift upward, they get another 2 cents. They get another $1 for them. And we are now the product.
Yeah.
And so the more we filter through, the more money they make. Sorry, I didn't mean to diatribe there, but it breaks my heart.
You're right. You're right. I did miss a super chat. I just want to get it before she might have to leave. One of our mods, 2 sisters and some yarns. Thanks, lady. She gave $4.99. She said Pirate Ponsonby is so going to judge us when he watches this. Why? Why is he going to judge us?
I have some strong opinions. I love
Judge not, lest you be judged.
Go ahead.
I did want to say, I think the decline of music has kind of mirrored the decline of the overall, I'll call it aesthetics of society. Because I always put it this way, you can kind of judge the strength of the pop culture of a decade based on how well it can be, for lack of a better term, commodified. So, if you wanted to throw a 1920s style party, the music's pretty clear, style of dress pretty clear. You could do that for 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, especially 80s with so many styles of dress and hairstyles, things. 90s a little bit, but that's when it starts to slow down. Early 90s, you have a very clear kind of idea of the fashion and music and all the other stuff. But as it starts to get into the 2000s, things start to slow down, and they tend to you don't see a whole lot of difference and a whole lot of growth and progression. And so, like, if you were to do a, I don't know, 2012 party, what would it be like? Can you think of anything distinct enough to that you'd be able to identify it as 2012?
No, because you know what? You're exactly right, and people were drawing upon fashions from previous decades, in my
Mhm.
opinion, if they
Justin
were doing
Bieber's
anything.
hair. Justin Bieber's hair, maybe like that, because I remember that from when I was teaching. That's when I was the first few years I was teaching, and every boy had but even that is a derivative of the '70s. Kind of big. If you look at the early Beatles, that too, the kind of long, bold hair. It was swooped over, but still, that's the only thing I can think of it visually. Um,
Yeah.
Kind of dark eye, makeup. I'm thinking of my students then, but even that was grunge, when you talk about emo or whatever you
Emo.
want to, yeah. But even it's all a copy of a
And then
copy.
once you get into the 2020s, it's what is fashion? It's everybody looks the same. There's no gender. Everyone has brightly
Gender
colored
bending.
hair, gender bending. It's all fluid, and you all look like the Borg. and, and you all have a mask on.
Yeah.
That'll be the
Oh,
party. People wearing masks.
gosh, that will be the creepy. Can you imagine if we make it through this and so society survives?
Well, but that's the thing. When you remove all standards, you actually start to see homogeny. You know what I mean? Because the strongest force in the planet is peer pressure. And so even if they claim that it's not there, it will be. And that's one thing I've noticed, especially watching college students over the last, I started my doctorate in 2017, and through it all became very beige, except for when you would have the whole campus dress up as women for Trans Day, or whatever it would be. It's like, yes, that was a thing, but like in support of the trans community. And so but outside of that, it just became a blank canvas. And that's what I think that this cultural shift wants. It wants you to be blank. So it's going to remove masculinity or femininity. It's going to remove the so that they can implant upon it whatever they want. And you got to have a blank canvas for that, And music is mirroring that for sure.
I think that you're both onto something. Here, I'm gonna pull up. Okay, so here's a question for you. This is from the chat while I'm pulling this up. I think this is a worth answering. Somebody said, does Keri drive a Gran Torino? Oh, because I'm an angry old man. No. Thoughts on Billie Eilish?
Go ahead, Chris.
She's an all right singer, but I don't like any of her music. Because I listened to one of the songs for the thing, and I was like, "What is this?" It's just very slow, very mellow. And I know, like, people have talked about she has some lyrics that were like borderline satanic sounding, or like the lyrical content. I don't know. I haven't listened to those songs, but yeah, I mean,
I
I'm not
like
gonna,
this
I'm
one.
not gonna tell her voice. I think she's an okay singer. She doesn't have like the range and the power that singers we mentioned, previously. But her song range, I don't really care for them.
So somebody in the chat, Matthew, says she was terrible when I saw her live. Yeah, I wonder how great these performers are live because so much of it is manufactured. I like this song of hers. Have you guys heard this, Happier Than Ever?
I don't know.
Just listen to a little bit of it because I wonder if it's doing what you guys are both talking about, where it's just taking something old. I don't know, but I like it. Oh wait.
I'm away from you. I'm happier than ever. Wish I could explain it better. I wish it wasn't true. Give me a day or two to think of something clever, to write myself a letter, to tell me what to do.
Okay, what do you think?
I'm falling asleep. No.
Honestly, what I hear in it is a little bit of Patsy Cline. Like you hear a little bit of them.
Yeah, okay. Maybe that's why I like it.
But and so you get that kind of lilty, but you tell me what to do, and then she's talking about writing a letter. So that might who writes a letter now? And so that so I go to the text a little bit because it's going to inform a little bit with what's happening, and it sounds like she's trying to reach back. It's like she's looking for a bit of creativity there, and all that she can come up with is something that she might have heard that actually had some, you know. And I'm not trying to be overly critical because I think of the stuff I've heard of her that at least has some depth to it, and it's not fully produced, you know, but it is derivative, and
Something, yeah.
right. Well, I think you get Patsy Cline. I think you get a little bit of that early Bessie Smith. Even that's honestly the first thing I thought is because the backtrack sounded kind of old.
Yeah. 20s.
Yeah, but even just like Hawaiian music is what I heard there too.
Cheeky Mare says, and she is on a fainting couch and on a landline, like
Yeah,
nostalgia. Right?
exactly. Yeah, she's on a landline. She's on everything is reaching backwards for that. And then you have the hair, which I thought, well, is that Marilyn Monroe? That was kind of the first thing too. And when you heard Marilyn Monroe sing, she kind of had that wispy, you know, a little bit.
Just to your point about the future and the music, and both you guys were talking about aesthetic and how a lot of the music is, well, we're all been talking about the music starting to sound the same, at least the popular music, and fashion is starting to sound the same. I think that hell is we're all going to look like this and we're all going to be listening to WAP. Like, just that's it. I mean, that's what we're living through right now. Sorry.
Well, or we're just going to be forced to listen to a quotas of songs. It's like, okay, we've got to have our trans, you know, non-binary two-spirit, and then we've got to have, you know, our BIPOC, and then we've got to, you know, that's what I'm scared of, because that's what I see happening now in ensemble music in schools, is that everything is now being when you talk about when I wanted to be a conductor, it was because I wanted to be creative with my choices of pieces. So I didn't want to think about the identity of them. I wanted to think about how they would fit together and how I could make a program out of them or paint a picture or you know, so I could have a Bach and I could have, you know, an arrangement of something by Motown in the Motown thing all in one concert. You know what I mean? And that's diversity to me, but it has nothing to do with what the people who wrote them look like. And that's what it's coming into now. And that's now being used to politicize things. And it's like, you could take if you didn't know who Eminem was, right? If you didn't know he was a white rapper, would you think that he was singing white music? You know what I mean? No, it has nothing to do with the way with the way he looks. And it's that you can have the same thing of Darius Rucker is a perfect example of this. You know, he's a country singer now.
He does a great cover of Wagon Wheel.
Yeah, no, I think his voice suits it, right? And you know, Hootie and the Blowfish was early '90s music we didn't mention, but but you would never see him as being a black guy or a white guy. It doesn't matter because he's good at it, and I think he's got the best version of Wagon Wheel.
He does have the best version, other than my husband.
Yeah, well, I want to hear your husband now. I've heard a lot about him. So like
that. Well, speaking of, okay.
Hey,
should we, Chris? I know it's getting late. Should we put up Nat King Cole real quick to end on a couple of really positive, like good music, or
do that? But I also wanted to see if either one of you wanted to talk about any new music you've been listening to lately, kind of recommend it to people.
Oh, Well, then, yeah. Okay, I've already got something queued up while you guys think. Here, we're talking about my husband. So I'm going to put this
Let's
up.
do it.
This is one of his new songs, Devil in My Heart. He arranges it and everything. So he's classically trained in piano, but he does piano and guitar, and then he has a violinist. Okay, let's see. Can you guys see that?
Oh, I love him already.
I got the devil in my heart. I got his song upon my lips. Every time she moves her hips, I got the devil in my heart. I got the warpath in my blood. I got the scalps of 50 men. It's hard to stop once you begin. When you got the devil in your heart. She broke my heart in Comanche on the day the Spanish came. She took me far into the desert. How can I be the one to blame? She's got the devil in her heart. Every time she
I just want you guys to hear the violin solo, and then we'll
like
leave.
a tempest or eclipse. She's got the devil in her heart.
I
So,
like it.
yeah. So, and if anybody, well, yeah, in the chat, just since I happen to know this guy, it's my husband. People say the mix is whack. It is. They did that one live, but they are recording it. They've actually been recording it this week in the studio. So there's going to be a better version coming out. If you like that song, there you go.
I will say this. He reminds me a little bit of Johnny Cash. He's got that kind of slow, steadiness to him, and again, it's a kind of the same thing I like about Conway Twitty, or whatever. It's there's a perfection in the imperfection of the voice. I don't want somebody who's just going to be, you know, all polished all the time. My job is to polish multiple voices. That's what I do as a choir director, try to make them sound like one. But when I listen to an artist like that, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear a person, and that's what going back to what I was saying a minute ago. I want to hear the person in it. I don't want to hear your manufactured version of perfection. It doesn't make so. I really like it, and my wife is a violinist, and I will always have a soft spot for anything old kind of country music, which is where that hit too. So I really like it.
I love the violin, and yeah, I love the way he works it in, and a lot of his songs he'll stop and play piano, and so there's like piano, violin, guitar, all of it together. I just love it. The only thing he's missing, I told him, is an upright bass. I love the upright bass.
Yeah, yeah,
but
it's good.
So you sent me one.
I've got to plug choral music here just a little bit, because there's a whole genre, or a newer genre of choral music, that I think people don't know exists, honestly, unless you're a choral geek.
Okay.
And this is This is by a composer named Arvo Pärt. He's out of Estonia, and it's a new. He took an old, Latin classical text, but if you need something to cleanse your mind, if you need something to go to sleep to, or I listen to this again. I'm a nerd, okay, but I listen to this to feel uh, more even, and or if I have something I need to, if I'm too mad or I'm too sad or I'm too, it's not happy or sad, doesn't have any beat to it, but it's all the human voice. And so you can just play a little bit of it. It's going to be real quiet at the beginning. So
I love this.
well, and maybe just jump to the middle to where it gets a little bit more involved. Just so, because it sounds like something you would hear in like a, yes, loud and soft, but yeah, it again, it's a palate cleanser. It's not something you want to listen to all the time, but if you need something to do that for you, to even you out, and then if you look at what the text means and things like that, I've just got to plug that because
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris? And if you guys have stuff you want to recommend, drop the link in the chat. Don't you drop anything porn or anything.
Sublime, man. You gotta listen to Sublime.
I'm trying to narrow it down. It's so tough. Can I do two? Is that
Yeah.
First one, can you type in Nylophone? That's Nylophone.
Okay.
Let's Go Driving.
Okay, I've got another one I just thought of that I can share too.
Yeah, I'll do
other than my husband. Okay. Telephone. Let's Go Driving. There we go.
Ducking and diving, living and hiding. Let's go driving somewhere far away. I think we made a mess here. So boy, it's a fifth gear. Keep moving till we're in the clear. Somewhere far away from this tiny little hurricane. The kidnappers are in the pain. I think I know a place where
I like this, Mystery Chris.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I do too.
Sisters, the chat says she's going to take my black card away.
Who has that power?
No, you don't have to take it away. Just pull it out and cut a quarter off, and then put it back. That's it.
3/4 black. One more, please.
Okay.
Brother Tiger, New Life.
What's it
This
called?
is a more electronic, kind of cool, chill song.
Brother what?
Tiger, New Life.
I like that it has tiger in the title.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just scooting past the ads. Sorry.
First time I heard
Somebody just joined the chat late, and they're like, "What are we doing?"
3 hours, of not much.
We are on to new music that is not maybe popular music, but that we really like. Okay. I don't know about that one.
You don't like it?
I
love it.
Like. What do you like about it?
Swing kind of beat to it.
Yeah, it reminds me of something from the early '90s. To be
Yeah.
honest, like a little bit of Janet Jackson kind of feel to it a little bit. Like some of the R&B, the more pop R&B.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah. I figure Keri like more the folky type sound.
Yeah, I got one. I
First
think
one?
she'll like.
Okay.
But yeah, I liked it. I think I didn't anticipate the voice sounding the way it did. So that actually was a good surprise for me. Not because what I was anticipating would have been bad, but just because it was different.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I really love that our chat is always honest. So thank you. Some people are saying no. Other people
Crowd.
Other people like it. No, Amy says, Chris.
Beep. No.
You guys. Okay. So you just sent me another one that you like.
This is by the Avett Brothers. I don't know if you ever. They're more of a.
I have heard of them.
Yeah, and this is an older song that I actually started. I found it over COVID, and back before everybody started getting angry.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to play it and all that stuff, and they're more bluegrassy kind of band, but this song hit me right in the heart, so I had to share it. It's called No Hard Feelings. Long intros.
I like this already.
Yeah.
The beginning, anyway.
When my body won't hold me anymore and it finally lets me free,
the words hit me because it's
will I be ready
about a divorce and
when my feet won't walk another mile and my lips give their last kiss goodbye, will my hands be steady when I lay down my fears, my hopes and my doubts, the rings on my fingers and the keys to my house, with no heart.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I like family bands because their voices blend
When the
in a
sun
natural way.
hangs low in the west and the light in my chest won't be kept, held at bay any longer.
Yeah, I like that. What do you
Yeah,
think?
it's just
Chris?
a chill, but it's got a good message too.
Yeah, very chill.
Okay, people in the chat are recommending some as well. So you guys, we've over 3 hours. We're just gonna play one or two because we really gotta go. I have to drive to the gym to take a shower because we still don't have a shower yet.
Oh no.
Let me just pull up this one. Mark, I may have played this for you already. Chris, I can't remember. But Mark, also, I'm curious what you think of this one. Let's see. Okay, this singer, Anthony told me about her. She and her brother had a band. They were like secular music. Her parents died in an awful, I think it was a car crash. She went to this silent retreat out in the desert and she ended up having a spiritual experience with God. And now she came back and wrote this Christian album, except it's not like Christian music, which I think a lot of that stuff sucks. The stuff that you hear on the radio. Tell me what you think of this.
Let's take it from the top.
Come on, shine your light on me, sweet Jesus, sweet Jesus. I've been walking in shadows. Death follows me wherever I go. Lord, please be my shepherd. I have gone astray. I have gone astray. I've been lost in the desert. You lead me into green pastures. Come on, shine your light on me, sweet Jesus, sweet Jesus. I bow my head.
Okay. People in the chat are cracking me up. This is Natalie Bergman. That's her name. The song is Shine Your Light on Me. As I was setting up the story, which is a sad story of what happened, I saw that Amy was like, please God, let it be a happy song. And someone's like, this doesn't sound like it's going to be a happy song. Cheeky Mare. Keri gets more of a black card corner. What do you guys think?
I like it. I like the 60s throwback.
Yeah. You wouldn't know it was 60s if you didn't see it. And or at least to me, like, I think it's got kind of D, but it doesn't sound like it should be a Christian song. It doesn't sound like the words should go. So I like that. I like that it's not, a 5x7 or a 7-Eleven song, kind of the way it is now on Christian music. So I like that. It has an indie rock feel to me, and I'm not a huge fan of that genre, but I do like what you did with it. I do, and the visuals make me like it more. That makes sense.
She had that 60s choice for the visuals, yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds old to me. I mean, maybe that's why I like it, because it sounds like an old song, and I do like the lyrics, and yeah. Okay, this is one that someone in the chat suggested. I'm not ignoring chat. We're gonna hit at least this one. This is I've never heard of this. You better not have sent me porn. Okay. Lena Katina, and the song is Moho.
Moho.
Вся моя музыка моно, когда любовь не в стерео. мы сделали. Вся моя музыка моно, когда любовь не в стерео. В каждой вселенной помни, я тебе верила. Вся моя музыка моно, когда любовь не в стерео. Мысли и сердце в ней синхроны, все, что мы сделали. Вся моя музыка моно, когда любовь не в стерео. В каждой вселенной помни, твои волосы снег. Давай повторимся.
What's the language?
I think this is Russian.
Yeah.
Tattoo. I remember them.
What's Tattoo?
Two lesbians that they got like sort of popular like early 2000s. They had a video where they like kissed or something.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, I didn't hear that at all. But
Are they Russian?
I think so. Forget what they were. They're still around. Huh. Interesting. Or at least one of them.
Oh yeah, some people in the chat recognize it. They know this whole story you're telling. I don't know anything about them.
I think it's interesting to hear. Most of the time when I hear outside of the United States popular music, it sounds like it's trying to be United States popular music, and or K-pop, like kind of thing. But so it's refreshing to hear something that isn't that, because I don't think that that's what they're trying to do. And I like the Russian language, so that it's naturally percussive, in a way that English is, but German is not, because German's ugly. So it sounded like something I could sing if I wanted to, and that's pretty neat. Mm-hmm. So I would lean towards liking it as opposed to not liking
it. Excuse me. I've got something positive we can go out on.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Now, this is a band. They were at a festival with my husband. They're called Handmade Moments. But the song I'm pulling up is a cover, so we're still dipping into the past. However, I think they have a great take on it. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Have you guys heard of this band?
What is it?
Handmade Moments.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, let's check that.
All right, so since we're in the back of a old-fashioned buggy
Carriage,
we thought it would only appropriate to play a 90s R&B jam.
Yeah, this one's called "Are You That Somebody?" and it's an Aaliyah song.
Oh.
Dirty South, can you really feel me? East Coast, feel me. West Coast, feel me. Here we go.
I love that kind of stuff.
Dirty. Can you really feel me? East Coast, feel me.
She does all the percussion.
Boy, I've been watching you like a hawk in the sky. Fly to you, my prey. Boy, I promise you, if we keep bumping heads, I know that one of these days we gon' hook it up, probably talk on the phone. See, I don't know if that's good. I've been holding back this secret from you. Probably shouldn't tell you, but if I let you know, you can't tell nobody. I'm talking about nobody. Are you responsible? Boy, I gotta watch my back, 'cause I'm not just anybody. Is it my goal? Is it your goal? Sometimes I'm goody.
Okay.
Right now I'm naughty.
You can hear the wagon. No, I love it.
Oh, good.
Because it's because of first of all, I love this song, but the wagon and the way he's playing, I love that kind of guitar. This where you turn the guitar into a stringed percussion instrument. That's how I play guitar. I can't not play that way, and so it's automatically I like that. But the wagon adds this interesting undertone to it because it's almost reminiscent of the track. I love that. It incorporates into the song a little bit.
They've got another one where they're in a rowboat and the camera's facing them and they're rowing. and you can hear all the water in the creek, and it's just like it's
That's cool.
clever. Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Okay, the chat is strongly divided. People either love it or hate it. What say you, Mr. Chris?
Not quite my thing. It needs to be wider. I'm sticking to it. Damn it.
Aw, you crack me up. Okay, you guys, we should wrap it up. It's been long. Don't you think? Is there anything that we have to put up before we go? I've got one thing we have to put up. Anything else?
No, I think it's
I'm
been
good.
the longest show we've done so far. Wow.
This is the longest show we've ever done. Yeah.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Mark Owsley, Professor, Doctor of Music. Can you tell people where to find you online?
Yeah, on the Unwokable podcast on YouTube. Please follow me there. I'm trying to build that up. I'm ever nearing the 1,000 mark, and I would just like to pass that, so I feel like I've accomplished something. But I'm also at Axe Against CRT on Twitter. You can find me there, and unwokable.substack.com. I do some writing there, and I'm on Spotify and Anchor and Apple Music or Apple Podcasts on Unwokable Podcast. So yeah, and that's where you can find
Unwokable.
me.
And am I talking to you tomorrow? Right?
Yeah, yes, you are.
Is it live?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about it, but it could be. Why not?
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll figure
we'll
it
have
out.
it 10 a.m.
Yeah.
So just in case.
So I've got your handle up on the screen if people want
Thank
to
you.
follow you on Twitter, and we'll go back and I'm going to edit the description of the video and make sure we include a link to your YouTube channel. It's called Unwokable.
Yes,
And we
and it's no
appreciate-
E, so it's UNWOKABLE, no E. So.
If you guys are interested in woke ideology and education and what you can do about it, I highly recommend that you follow
And
Mark.
we're going to be I'm going to be diving into music and how it's affecting that and the arts here as I move.
It's going to be exciting. Mystery Chris, anything you want to say before we play a little bit of this?
No. It's a fun show. And
yeah.
It's been so fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do something similar in the future and find some music that we can all agree on, because that's very
we should do one where it's just like the worst songs we can think of. Just like the worst, which some of them we've heard tonight. But
no.
Yeah. Okay. So this is for Cheeky Mare. Cheeky Mare, we're going to end with a little bit of Nat King Cole, Unforgettable.
Where am I going to park? Oh, but here tonight, I'm glad that I found a place to park, because right now I'd like to sing for you a very wonderful oldie entitled Unforgettable. That's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far. Like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more unforgettable.
Okay, guys, that's our show. That's a beautiful ending. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Again, if you like the show, please consider hitting like, subscribe, sharing it with your friends. This was really fun. Have a good night. Good night to our guests, Mark Owsley. And good night, Mystery Chris.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.